20 Important Laws of Success in Business by Ishmael Gaskin. Prologue. It's not a question of intelligence, insight, or vast resources that billions of dollars have been squandered on marketing strategies that don't work. Many executives believe that a well-planned, well-executed, and well-funded marketing campaign will be successful. That is not always the case, and you're not searching for firms like IBM, GM, or Sears Roebuck. You're looking for companies like IBM, GM, and Sears Roebuck. The program managers at GM must be the finest and brightest in the industry. The greatest and brightest have naturally attracted the biggest and finest corporations, such as General Motors and IBM. The programs, on the other hand, were built on erroneous assumptions. When asked how he thinks Americans feel about huge businesses, John Kenneth Galbraith responded that we dread their power. Today, we must admit that we are concerned about corporate ineptitude. All businesses, especially the major ones, are in difficulties. General Motors is a good illustration of this. The corporation has paid a horrible price for the demise of its brand over the last decade. It cost the company just as much as it cost the brand to create. A drop of 10 points in the stock price equals a loss of $10 billion in annual revenue. Even if the degree of competition has grown, GM's challenge is not one of competitiveness. It's also not a question of quality, even though GM's isn't particularly good. It's unquestionably a marketing issue. When a corporation makes a mistake today, the mark of the error is immediately behind them, in the form of competition for their business. To re-enter the market, that corporation must wait for other businesses to make mistakes and exploit the situation. So how can you avoid becoming perplexed in the first place? The solution is that your marketing strategy must adhere to marketing laws, although we define our ideas and concepts under the banner. Marketing is also important regardless of your position in the organization or the items and services you provide. What exactly are these marketing regulations, and who sculpted them in stone after bringing them down from Mount Sinai? This book explains the fundamental rules of marketing. But who made this claim? How did two Connecticut men discover out when the rest of the world was oblivious? Finally, there are a lot of knowledgeable marketers and academics. Why are they oblivious to things that we take for granted? The solution is straightforward. We can state that there exist marketing laws, but most people are unwilling to admit it. The only certainty is that they are irreplaceable. Why can't there be marketing regulations as there are in nature? You can build the most beautiful plane in the world, but it won't take off unless it obeys the rules of physics, particularly the laws of physics gravity. On a sand dune, you can construct an architectural marvel, but the first storm will destroy everything overnight. As a result, you can create a fantastic marketing campaign, but if you don't understand the rules of marketing, it might be harmed by only one of them. Maybe it's in our nature not to recognize that we can't accomplish everything. Most marketers feel that if you have enough energy, imagination, or dedication, you can do anything, especially if you're ready to put up the necessary financial resources. It's easy to see what marketing laws there are once you agree there are any. It's so self-evident. We've been researching what works and what doesn't in marketing for over 25 years. We've discovered that successful initiatives are virtually always in sync with the market's fundamental laws. Through our books, papers, and speeches, we have thoroughly examined marketing fundamentals. In the marketing process, we've also produced strategic templates, such as a letter character of human intelligence that we popularized under the notion of position. We've also created a sample of the military market in which firms and brands are positioned in marketing warfare in offensive, defensive, or guerrilla positions. We have formalized the key laws that ensure success or failure in the marketplace after years of dealing with marketing ideas and difficulties. These are referred to as the impossible marketing laws. Alternatively, there are a total of 22 items. If you break any of these rules, you will be in danger. 1. The law of leadership. Is it preferable to be in the lead or to be in a better position? Many people assume that the most difficult aspect of marketing is persuading potential clients that you have a superior product or service. This is not the case. If you compete in a small market with larger, better-funded competitors, your marketing plan must be effective. It's possible that yours will fail from the start. You disobeyed the basic rule of marketing. The main difficulty in marketing is to establish a category in which you are the first. This is known as the law of leadership. The better position is still preferable than the leading position. It's simpler to think of something initially than to convince oneself that your product is superior to one that has already been released. By asking yourself two questions, you may present the law of leading. 1. Who was the first person to fly across the Atlantic Ocean by themselves? Isn't that Charles Lindbergh? 2. Who was the second person to fly across the Atlantic Ocean by themselves? It's not a simple question to answer. Bert Hinkler was the second person to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean. Bert is a better pilot than Charlie since he is able to fly faster. Reduce your fuel use. Who, on the other hand, has heard of Bert Hinkler? Bert had run away from home, and Mrs. Hinkler had not heard from him since then. Despite the fact that Lindbergh was a trailblazer, most businesses have followed Bert Hinkler's lead. They hold off until the market is saturated, then enter the market with a superior product, often under your own brand. A same product with a different name has little chance of establishing a significant and successful brand in today's competitive marketplace. Chapter 12. Law of Expansion. In any product area, the leading brand is always the first brand that comes to mind for a potential buyer. After WOT, Hertz in car rental, IBM in computer, and Coca-Cola in beverage, Heineken was the first foreign beer to gain popularity in the United States. What is the best imported beer now, 4 decades later? Is it Heineken beer or the best tasting beer? There are a few in the United States. All 425 beer brands are imported and sold. One of these brands has to be better than Heineken in terms of flavor. Is that, however, truly the issue? Heineken remains the most popular imported beer, accounting for 30% of the market. Miller Lite was the first domestic light beer. So today's light beer, which is the most popular in the United States, it's the beer that tastes the greatest or sticks in the consumer's mind first. However, not everything that starts off well succeeds. It's possible that your first job is already too late. USA Today, for example, was the first national newspaper, but it failed miserably. The newspaper has never turned a profit and has lost a total of $800 million. A national newspaper may be too late in the era of television. Many of the first were unfit for public consumption. The first ice cream for dogs, Frosty Paws, was a flop. Dogs like this ice cream, but their owners are the ones who pay for it, and they, understandably, believe that dogs do not require their own ice cream. Even if it's just for a little time, they're content. Take a bite out of the ice cream marketing. Any product, brand, category, or industry is subject to the law of leadership. For example, you are unfamiliar with the name of the United States' first institution. By substituting the word leading with the first word, you can always guess correctly. Then what is the name of America's most prestigious university? The majority of people would choose Harvard, which is also the name of the country's founding institution. What are 2 established universities in the United States? The College of William and Mary is located in Williamsburg, Virginia. Many people are unaware of it because it is just marginally more well-known than Bert Hinkler. Twins are the most similar of all the items. Even when they know the other person, twins frequently remark that people always like the person they meet first. People are prone to sticking with what they have. If you meet someone other than your spouse, you're doing something wrong. Consider attorney's expenses, child custody, and asset division if you decide to alter. Journals are subject to the law of leadership as well. That's why Time was featured in Newsweek, and People was featured in Us and Playboy prior to Penthouse. Take, for example, the publication TV Guide. Curtis Publishing Company attempted to compete with the nascent magazine by publishing Television Listings magazine in the early 1950s. Television Guide. Despite the fact that TV Guide was only getting started and Curtis had a lot of power, Curtis never really took off since the market for TV Guide was already established. Become ahead of schedule. The rule of lead applies to a wide range of items, from hard bodies like vehicles and computers to soft bodies like universities and booze. Jeep was the first two-wheeler. Acura was Japan's first luxury automobile. IBM was the first to construct a high-performance mainframe computer. And Sun Microsystems was the first to produce office computers. Leading brands include Jeep, Acura, IBM, and Sun. Chrysler was the first business to introduce a compact passenger vehicle. Chrysler now controls 10% of the auto market and 50% of the compact passenger vehicle market. Is it thus vital for the automobile industry to produce better automobiles or to gain market share first? The laser printer was initially introduced by Hewlett-Packard Computer Company. The corporation now controls 5% of the personal computer industry and 45% of the laser printer market. Gillette was the first business to develop a safety razor blade. Tide was the first brand of laundry detergent. Hayes was the first corporation to specialize in computer networking. Because the brand name generally becomes the generic term for the category, the first brand tends to stay in the lead. Xerox invented the plain paper copier and has since been synonymous with all plain paper copiers. How can I acquire a copy of Xerox? People will ask as they stand in front of Ricoh, Sharp, or Kodak copiers. They'll inquire about Kleenex, despite the fact that the tissue box's cover plainly states Scott. They will also offer you Coke, despite the fact that they only sell Pepsi Cola. How many individuals ask to buy cellophane tape rather than Scott tape? There isn't much. When a brand name becomes a common term, most people use it. Band-Aid, fiberglass, Formica, Gore-Tex, Jell-O, Crazy, glue, Q-tips, Saran wrap, Velcro. That's only a small portion of the picture. Some individuals will use the lengthy name to transform the brand name to something more generic. FedEx, this item is going to the seashore. If you're launching the first brand of a new item, category, attempt to come up with a name that can be used for the whole category. Lawyers frequently recommend the contrary, but what do lawyers know about market rules? Not only does the first brand frequently become the leader, but the sequence in which the brands sell often corresponds to their position. The medicine ibuprofen is the finest example. Brand Advil came in number 1, followed by Nuprin and Metaprin. They all make the same amount of money in the same order. Advil controls 51% of the market, followed by ibuprofen, Nuprin 10%, and Metaprin 1%. Motrin IB is the 4th brand to hit the market. Despite having a very effective ibuprofen composition, the Motrin brand only has a 15% market share. Remember that Advil and Motrin were both introduced by the same firm. It's also worth noting that Advil became the generic name for the drug. Advil is commonly used as a generic noun by consumers, who rarely use the term ibuprofen. Take 2 Advil tablets and visit me in the morning. Even physicians will tell their patients. Tylenol is the same way. Was the first acetaminophen brand. It's difficult to identify which brand is second because Tylenol is so far ahead. What approach is most organizations resolved to adopt if the secret to success is to stay in the thoughts of prospective customers? A more effective product approach. Standards are the newest and most popular issue in business administration. Standards have been raised to the level of unique competitive strategy. Benchmarks are tools for comparing and benchmarking your company's goods against the finest in the market, and it is regarded an essential ingredient in a process known as integrated quality management. Regrettably, the tried-and-true technique failed miserably. In fact, individuals consider the first thing that comes to mind to be the best. Marketing is a perception war, not a product war. What were the names of the earliest aspirin, acetaminophen, and ibuprofen brands? Hint: if you substitute first for leading, you'll have the solution to this question. The largest equity broker in America, according to Charles Schwab. Would you be shocked to find that Charles Schwab is the Charles Lindbergh of the equities trading industry? The first person to walk on the moon was Neil Armstrong. Who was the second to last person? Roger Bannister was the first person to run a mile in under 4 minutes, 1.6 kilometers. What is the identity of the second? The first president of the United States was George Washington. Who is the second president of the United States? The first English muffin brand was Thomas. What is the name of the second brand? Gatorade was the first sports drink brand. Second, what is it? Could you avoid the fate of Buzz Aldrin, John Landy, John Adams, and the nameless English muffins if you were second in the minds of your potential customers? That isn't always the case. Luckily, there are some exceptions. 2. The law of product categories. Create a new product where you are first if you aren't first in a category. What is the name of the third person to fly across the Atlantic alone? If you didn't know Bert Hinkler was the second person to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean, you'd have no idea who the third was. But it's Amelia Earhart after all. Is Amelia the third person to fly solo over the Atlantic? Or the first woman to fly across the Atlantic in today's world? People at Anheuser-Busch may now remark, we have to import a beer too, after the popularity of Heineken beer. They didn't, though. If there is a market for a high-priced international beer, there may also be a demand for a high-priced domestic beer, they add. They also introduced Michelob beer, the first high-priced domestic beer, which now sells twice as much as Heineken. In reality, Anheuser-Busch imported Carlsberg beer, which was immensely popular in Europe, but failed to catch on in the United States. Miller Lite was the first domestic light beer, and it took an importer 5 years to say, if there is a market for domestic light beer, there is also a demand for imported light beer. Amstel Light became the best-selling imported light beer as a consequence. Please don't be upset if you can't get into the minds of your potential consumers. Instead, seek for a new product where you can stand first. It isn't as tough as you may believe. All people and their relatives flocked to this profession once IBM became a huge success in the world of computers. Burroughs, Control Data, General Electric, Honeywell, NCR, RCA, and Sperry are just a few of the names that come to mind. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs are their names. Is there any midget who grows up to become a worldwide force with 126,000 employees and $14 billion in revenue and is dubbed the world's second largest computer company? Nobody. After IBM, Digital Equipment Corporation was the most successful computer corporation of the 1970s and 1980s. The first computer firm was IBM, while the first mini-computer company was DIS. Many other computer firms, and their owners, have become wealthy and well-known by following a simple rule. If you aren't number one in an area, invent one that is. Tandem is one of the company's earliest fault-tolerant computers, with revenues of $1.9 billion. Stratus was also the first computer corporation to accept small mistakes. Stratus already has $500 million in sales. Is it tough to sell your product? No. They're very easy to make. However, putting ideas into practice is another story. Cray Research is a company that does research, supercomputer. Cray now has a market capitalization of $800 million. Convex also debuted the small supercomputer. Convex now has $200 million in sales. By developing a new field, you may sometimes swap places and become a winner. Commodore was a failed family-owned personal computer firm until it released the Amiga, the first multimedia computer. With yearly sales of over $500 million, the Commodore Amiga is a huge success. There are a variety of routes to first place. Dell got its start in the personal computer industry by selling them over the phone. Dell now has $900 million in sales. The first question to ask oneself when launching a new product is not, how does the new product beat the competition, but what industry first is this product in? Instead of opening a superior brokerage office, Charles Schwab first created a discount brokerage office. Lear's magazine was not the first women's magazine, but it was the first adult women's magazine, not to be confused with a women's magazine published yesterday. This is the polar opposite of a traditional marketing strategy. How can you make people like your brand more? Let the label go. Consider the following items. When it comes to brands, potential buyers will be suspicious because everyone boasts about how much superior theirs is. Customers, on the other hand, are constantly open-minded when it comes to items since people are always looking for something new, and just a few individuals are looking for something better. Push ahead when you're the first in a field. It's critical that you don't have anybody to compete with. Customers were told why they needed to acquire a mini-computer, but not that they needed to buy a DEC mini-computer. Hertz was the first firm to offer vehicle rentals, while Coca-Cola was the first to market soft drinks. Since then, both organizations' marketing campaigns have become more effective. 3. The allotment of memory. Rather than being first in the market, strive to be first in remembrance. The Emites Altair 8800 was the world's first personal computer. The rule of thumb leads us to believe that the Emites Altair 8800, which is an ugly name, is the most popular personal computer brand. Unfortunately, we do not have this product available. The first commercial television set was created by Dumont. Duryea was the first to launch an automobile, while Hurley was the first to sell a washing machine. None of them exist. Is the rule of leading mentioned in Chapter 1 flawed in any way? No, but the law of memory has altered the situation. Rather than being first in the market, be first in the customer's mind. Being first in the market is just a byproduct of being first in memory. IBM, for example, was not the first company to introduce a high-performance mainframe computer. The UNIVAC machine was the first to hit the market thanks to the Remington Rand Company. However, thanks to a coordinated marketing effort, IBM was able to assume first place in the customer's mind and win. The law of perception is followed by the law of memory. If marketing is a fight of perception rather than goods, memory is crucial in the market. Thousands of entrepreneurs fail every year as a result of this law. Some people feel that their ideas or conceptions will or can change an industry. The difficulty is figuring out how to convey this point of view or concept into the heads of potential clients. Money is an approximate answer to the problem. It is the place to go to develop products or services, as well as resources, plan press conferences, attend trade exhibitions, promote and sell direct mail campaigns. Chapter 22, Potential Law. Unfortunately, this leads to the idea that the most important aspect of marketing is money. This isn't correct. Marketing has squandered more money than any other human endeavor, with the exception of government activities, of course. A concept that has been formed in your mind cannot be changed. It's like going up against the enemy's fortress. The Wang business was the first to produce word processing components, but the world has now moved on to the electronic computer. This adjustment elicited no response from Wang Company. Rather than spending millions of dollars in the development of personal computers and microcomputers, Wang took a job as a word processor. Xerox was the first copier manufacturer, and it later attempted to enter the computer industry. Xerox failed to make any progress in the computer area 25 years later, despite investing $2 billion. If you wish to modify the spelling of a word on the computer, just enter it over, overwrite, or remove it, delete. If you want to alter someone's viewpoint, don't bother. It is extremely unusual for a concept to be changeable or irreversible after it has been formed. In marketing, you lose time attempting to modify a customer's previously formed perception. That reveals the secret of a spark of inspiration in a person's thoughts. You have never heard of a person today. That individual will become renowned tomorrow. This blinking feeling is a common occurrence. You can't go into someone's head and gradually establish a favorable image over time if you want to leave a lasting impact. That is not how the mind works. You must enter your thoughts. People don't like to alter their minds, which is why you have to jump in rather than duck. Once they had a sense of what was going on, take note of what sort of person they believe you are. In their minds, you can't be anybody else. The use of money is one of the mysteries of marketing. A miracle may sometimes be accomplished with just a few bucks. Millions of cash the next day couldn't save a corporation on the verge of bankruptcy. Even with a small amount of money, if you have a smart mind, you can go far. With a $91,000 donation from Mike Markkula, Apple soared to new heights in the computer world. Customers remember the name Apple because it was a simple and easy-to-remember moniker. Apple's competitors, on the other hand, have names that are difficult to recall. The Apple II, Commodore PET, IMSI 8080, MIT Solitaire 8800, and Radio Shack TRS-80 were the first 5 personal computer companies to enter the market. Are you trying to figure out which name is the most basic and easy to remember? 4. The law of the perception. Marketing isn't a battle of products. It's all about perceptions. Many individuals consider marketing to be a battle of products. They will win in the long term. The winner is expected to be the best product. Marketers' heads are already full of research and fact-gathering tasks. They do research to ensure that the truth is on their side, after which they boldly assert in the marketing arena that they have the greatest product and that the best product wins. It's all a ruse. There is no such thing as objective reality. There isn't anything to sue. There are no such things as the best items. In the realm of marketing, all that exists are the customer's impressions. Only perception is true reality. All else is a trick of the eye. All truths are related to one another, in relation to your own or other people's minds. I am correct, and the other person is incorrect. You are essentially implying that you have a greater perspective than the other person. The majority of people believe they have a better perception of themselves than others. There is a sense of subjective perfection in the surname. Their perception is always more correct than that of a friend or a neighbor. In the mind, there should be no distinction between truth and perception. That's difficult to see. People isolate themselves from the world when confronted with the terrible reality of loneliness in the cosmos. They exist in a world populated by books, movies, television, and newspapers. Clubs, organizations, and affiliations belong to them. The world outside their minds appears to be more real than the reality within their heads. One holds on to the idea that reality is the mind's outside world and that the person is a mote of dust in the cosmos. The truth is just the reverse. There is only one reality you can be confident of, and that is the one you create for yourself. If dancing exists, it exists in your own and other people's ideas. That is the reality with which marketing campaigns must contend. Oceans, rivers, cities, and buildings may exist there, but we have no means of knowing about them except via our own viewpoint. The exploitation of these impressions is what marketing is all about. The belief that you're waging a product battle leads to the majority of marketing blunders. All of the rules in this book are written from the perspective of the opposing party. Some marketers evaluate the natural laws of marketing based on a fallacy. The product is the center of the marketing campaign, and you will win or lose depending on it. That is why natural marketing of some things, previously thought to be reasonable, invariably fails. You can only overcome the fundamental flaws of marketing instinct by researching how perceptions are generated in the mind and matching your marketing plans with these perceptions. Each of us, maker, distributor, agent, consumer, etc., has a set of eyes through which we view the world. How do we tell whether there is objective truth in that? Who is going to inform us? Only has the ability to it was due to the fact that someone else observed the identical scene through different eyes. The truth is nothing more than an expert's opinion. Who is the expert, by the way? These are individuals who are regarded as experts by their peers. Why is there so much dispute in marketing termed events if truth is such an illusion? Why is it that so many marketing choices are based on a comparison of facts? Why do so many marketers believe that it is their responsibility to use truth as a weapon to fix inaccuracies that already exist in their clients' minds? Marketers trust in facts because objective reality is what they believe in. Marketers are also prone to assuming that the truth is on their side. It's easy to believe you have the greatest product if you feel you need the best product to win the marketing fight. All it takes is a slight shift in your own viewpoint. It's a different affair to persuade a consumer to change their viewpoint. It's tough to alter a customer's opinion. Consumers think they are correct when they have minimal expertise with a product category. A mental perception is frequently misinterpreted as a universal fact. People believe they are rarely, if ever, incorrect, at least in their own minds. When the items are separated, it is simple to see the strength of product perception. For example, Toyota, Honda, and Nissan are the three major automobile manufacturers in the United States. Most marketers believe that the three brands are competing on quality, style, capacity, and pricing. That is not the case. What are people's opinions? That mentality decides whether brand prevails among Honda, Toyota, and Nissan automobiles. Marketing is a perception fight. In the United States, Japanese automakers sell the same automobiles as they do in Japan. If marketing is a product battle, then the sequence in which items are marketed in two nations must be the same, since the same quality, model, capacity, and price must be sold in both the US and Japan. Honda, on the other hand, is far from being the most popular automobile brand in Japan. Honda automobiles came in third place, behind Toyota and Nissan automobiles. In Japan, Toyota sells 4 times as many automobiles as Honda. So how do Honda automobiles sold in Japan vary from Honda cars sold in the United States? The product is the same, but the customer's impression of it is different. If you tell your New York friends that you recently purchased a Honda, they may inquire, "What model did you purchase?" What's the difference between a Civic and an Accord? Or is it only a prelude? When you tell your Tokyo friends that you've recently acquired a Honda, they'll ask, what sort of motorbike did you buy? Honda is a motorbike company in Japan, and it appears that most people do not want to buy a car produced by a motorcycle manufacturer. Would Harley-Davidson be successful if they released a Harley-Davidson vehicle, on the other hand? You believe that it is possible that it is dependent on the car's quality, style, engine capacity, and price. Even if you believe Harley-Davidson is known for producing high-quality items, the answer is still no. People see Harley-Davidson as a motorcycle manufacturer, lowering the value of Harley-Davidson automobiles regardless of how wonderful the product is. Chapter 12, Law of Expansion. Why is Campbell's soup the most popular in the United States, but not in the United Kingdom? Why is Heinz soup #1 in the UK, yet fails horribly in the United States? Marketing is a perception war, not a product war. The practice of addressing these views is known as marketing. Many beverage marketers consider marketing to be a battle of tastes. New Coke is the best in flavor, tested by Coca-Cola, tested 200,000 times on taste. The test showed that New Coke tasted better than Pepsi. Cola and Pepsi tasted better than the original Coca-Cola. But who is the victor in this marketing battle? New Coke, the drink deemed to have the finest flavor in the trial, came in third. The original Coca-Cola, which came in third place in the trial, was ranked first. Believe in anything you want to believe in and eat whatever you want to eat. It's a war of perception, not taste, in beverage marketing. Customers sometimes make purchasing decisions based on outdated assumptions, making the struggle much more difficult. Alternatively, rather than depending on their own judgment, customers make decisions based on someone else's view. This is the everyone knows premise. Everyone knows that Japanese vehicles are of superior quality than those made in the United States. As a result, individuals choose to acquire a car based on the knowledge that Japanese cars are of greater quality. When asked if they had any personal experience with the goods, the majority of consumers responded no. And if that's the case, their own personal experience has been distorted to meet their viewpoint. They consider it bad luck if you buy a poor Japanese automobile, since everyone believes Japanese cars are of good quality. On the contrary, having a decent American automobile is considered a blessing because American cars are universally regarded as inferior. Audi automobiles are well known for their issues. On November 23, 1986, CBS News and Television aired a lost control piece on 60 Minutes, which exposed the public to a number of consumer concerns regarding the Audi vehicle's uncontrollable increase in speed. Audi sales dropped from 60,000 in 1986 to 12,000 in 1991 in the United States. Have you ever had an issue with Audi speeding out of control? Almost certainly not. Every car specialist has been unable to locate the source of the complaint. However, awareness continues to grow. Audi just released a commercial comparing its automobiles against two Mercedes-Benz and BMW models. German car experts, according to the advertising, have ranked Audi cars higher than Mercedes and BMW. Do you agree with me? Almost certainly not. Is that true? It makes no difference. As a result, marketing is not a product war. It's a perception fight. 5. The law of focus. Mastering a term in the mind of a consumer is the most potent marketing notion. If a corporation can own a term in the minds of its customers, it may be extremely successful. It's not a difficult term, and it's not something I made up. The finest words are those that can be found in a dictionary. This is the focus legislation. By reducing the point of convergence to a single phrase or notion, you shorten the journey to the customer's mind. That is the essential marketing sacrifice. Federal Express was able to instill the term overnight in the brains of its clients by foregoing additional services in order to focus only on package delivery. A leading or superior position has enabled a leading brand or firm to own a word in the eyes of customers to some extent. However, the term that the dominant corporation possesses must be so basic that it is virtually undetectable. The leader might claim ownership of a term that encompasses the whole category. The word computer, for example, is owned by IBM. Another way of putting it is that a brand becomes a generic name for a whole category. Anyone deny it's a computer if we require an IBM machine? By mixing terms, you may get a sense of the leader's professed positions. If the terms computer, copier, chocolate bar, and cola are supplied, IBM, Xerox, Hershey's, and Coke are the four most relevant words. A good leader will go above and above to boost his or her status as a leader. Although the Heinz company owns the name ketchup, it has struggled to be self-sufficient. The slowest ketchup in the West is the most essential aspect of ketchup. Heinz retains a 50% market share by just mastering the term slow. If you're not a leader, your speech should focus on a certain topic. More crucial, your term must be in the product category. No one will be able to conceal it. To win, you don't have to be an expert linguist. Prego defeated ragu in the spaghetti sauce industry, capturing 27% of the market, owing to a Heinz-inspired idea. Prego's sauce is thicker. The most successful words are those that are straightforward and frequently refer to a benefit. Regardless of how complex the product is or what the market demand is, in any case, focusing on one word or the customer's interest is always preferable to 2, 3, or 4 words. This will work much better if you provide one significant advantage, since your clients will likely tell you about a variety of additional perks. A thicker pasta sauce denotes great nutritional content and excellent quality. A better constructed and mechanically engineered automobile, a safer car, is referred to as a safer car. Most successful organizations or brands master a term in the consumer's mind. Whether it's the product of a well-thought-out procedure or not, though certain words like Volkswagen's Fahrvergnügen aren't worth mastering. Listed below are a few examples. Cavities on the crest, toothpaste cars. Mercedes-Benz Engineering is a company that specializes. Volvo Automobiles of Safety, BMW Automobile Driving. Domino's Pizza is a pizza delivery service that delivers pizza to your home. Pepsi Cola is a soft drink manufactured by PepsiCo. Drinking by teenagers. Nordstrom Service. The words are not interchangeable. It might be linked to a benefit, cavity prevention, or a service, customer service, home delivery. While we are aware that such remarks remain in our clients' minds, they do not last indefinitely. There are instances when you need to adjust your words. It isn't a simple task. The recent story of Lotus Development Corporation exemplifies the severity of the situation. Lotus has mastered the term spreadsheet for many years. Lotus is known for its 1, 2, 3 formulas and spreadsheets. However, the term spreadsheet is a crowded market with limited development potential. Lotus, like other businesses, aspires to grow. How can the company, which only sells one product, outperform me? The traditional response, as IBM and Microsoft did, is to grow in all directions. Lotus has increased the size of its AMI Pro software buy and added new applications. The company was then restructured to focus on a new concept known as groupware, a software solution for personal computer networks. Lotus was the first software company to develop groupware effectively. In the minds of its consumers, the corporation has automatically mastered a second word. Lotus, unlike Microsoft, now has a goal for the firm. This task will not be completed overnight, but rather as part of a long-term expansion in the software industry. Groupware will aid Lotus in the same way that overnight helped Federal Express and safety helped Volvo. You can't just accept someone's word for it. Lotus's success is due to groupware, which no firm now owns. Furthermore, there is a technology that is geared for network computers in general. The internet is linked to more than half of all corporate computers. Network computing is even the name of a new publication. Many businesses recognize the value of mastering a term or concept, but they are oblivious to the fact that they are not the first to do so. What not to do in marketing is discard one's own terms in favor of a term that already belongs to someone else. This is the situation with Atari, the video games manufacturer. In 1982, the corporation changed course due to a drop in sales. Surname wishes want Atari to be associated with computers. Atari has the strength of a name, but also displays weakness, said CEO James Morgan. Atari had to reinvent its image with electronic items, since it was linked with video games. Mr. Morgan's method has been thwarted by the fact that other businesses, like as Apple and IBM, have mastered the terms he seeks. The lack of diversity on Atari is a tragedy. The true irony, though, is that in 1986, a business resurrected the notion that Atari had abandoned. That's Nintendo, which now owns 75% of the multi-billion-dollar video game business. Who knows where Atari has ended up these days? Narrowing down is the heart of marketing. As your range of motion decreases, you grow stronger. When you're chasing after everything, you can't stand your ground. Some businesses accept the shrinking of their objective and work to improve their approach. For the market, we place a premium on quality. We don't engage in the market and place a high value on price. Customers won't believe in you unless they notice that you solely conduct business with high-value items like Mercedes-Benz or BMW. General Motors seeks to sell items, and the product's quality is determined by the price. The company's newest motto is, "Putting quality on the road." The words "Mark of Excellence" appear on every GM product. Can you guess what Ford is up to? They do the same thing because quality is job one. Quality is the first thing, as Ford's advertising stated. "We don't want to be the biggest. We want to be the greatest," remarked Lee Iacocca, chairman of Chrysler. Is there anyone who believes Iacocca doesn't want to be the most powerful? These are the major issues within the firm. The path to greatness in its entirety. It's perfect for customer convention slogans, especially when accompanied by an orchestra, flowers, and dancers. Outside of the corporation, however, these communications were sent to everyone. Is there any business that professes to be unqualified? Never. Everyone claims to have attributes, but no one possesses all of them. It's impossible to focus on traits or attributes without pushing for the other viewpoint. You also won't be able to portray oneself as an honest politician since no one wants to adopt the opposing stance, although there are many good candidates. You may, however, pose as a prejudiced corporate or working world applicant and be instantly approved due to support for the other side. Leave the attorneys out when you're concentrating on increasing your phrase. Everything should be trademarked, according to them. This strategy entails allowing people to utilize your words. As a leader, of course, there must be followers. Lotus benefited from the entry of other firms into the groupware sector. As a result, the field becomes even more significant, and people respect Lotus's leadership even more. Once you possess a term, you must protect it in the marketplace. The BMW case is a good example of this. BMW has long been regarded as the greatest driving machine. The corporation then chose to broaden its product offering and go after Mercedes-Benz with the 700 series big passenger automobile. The issue was figuring out how to make a living room seem like a living room. You can't feel the road surface when you're behind the wheel. As a result, BMW's fortunes began to deteriorate. Fortunately, the business has just released a little BMW, emphasizing the term driving once more. The business has regained its focus. Everything you sell is subject to the rule of center of gravity. The anti-drug campaign, for example, which was highly promoted on television and in the press, failed due to a lack of concentration. There are no terms that come to mind while talking about drugs in the thoughts of drug users. There are anti-drug advertisements all over the place. You would believe that anti-drug forces, professionals, should follow in the footsteps of anti-abortion activists who have concentrated their efforts on a single strong word: pro-life and pro-choice. Anti-drug forces should follow suit, concentrating on a single strong term. It is vital to make drugs as socially unacceptable as smoking is right now. The term loser comes to mind as a candidate for this unusual function. Drug addicts will suffer a variety of losses, including job loss, family loss, freedom loss, and even death. A campaign titled "Drugs for Losers" can have a significant impact, particularly on recreational drug users who are concerned about their social standing, rather than engaging in inebriation. After that, who knows? The law of emphasis, often known as the marketing law, can aid in the eradication of a major social ill. 6. The law of a monopoly. It's difficult for two businesses to master the same term in the customer's mind. It's pointless to strive to master a term if a rival already owns it or occupies a mental space in the customer's head. As already stated in Chapter 5, Volvo is a master of the phrase safely. Many other automakers, notably Mercedes-Benz and General Motors, are also attempting to profit from the term safely. But no one has been able to get this term into the heads of buyers like Volvo. Atari's narrative is a monument to the hard effort put in by the corporation as it attempted to enter the home computer market, to combat against well-prepared and well-defended opponents. Sure, altering the name computer game may be appropriate because it has the benefit of being well recognized as Atari's computer game developer. But just that, Apple, Commodore, and others had already dominated the personal computer industry. Despite the numerous reports of disastrous failures, many businesses continue to break the law of monopolies. You can't change someone's mind once they've made up their mind. You are merely strengthening the opponent's stance. Federal Express abandoned the term overnight in favor of DHL's worldwide. Before, the words overnight letter were placed on Federal Express packaging. Currently, the terms FedEx letter are put in their stead. Must arrive overnight, the company's pitch used to declare. But more lately, the phrase global has featured in a Federal Express ad. This occurrence presents a critical question. Is it true that Federal Express has never owned from worldwide? Never say never. The term has been mastered by someone. This has been replaced by DHL Worldwide Express. Faster in the world is their slogan. Federal Express must find a method to focus its efforts against DHL in order to succeed. The corporation couldn't accomplish it by attempting to master a DHL-owned term in the customer's mind. Another example of someone attempting to master a term that belongs to someone else. The battery firm Energizer has attempted to replicate Duracell's long-lasting idea. Duracell will continue to hold the term long-lasting despite Eveready's attempts. Duracell has made the phrase long-lasting the first thing that customers think of when they think of Duracell. Durability is reflected in the name of the component Dura. Marketers have fallen into the trap of so-called research. A team of researchers was assembled, focus groups were organized, customer surveys, printed questionnaires were developed, and a 2-kilogram report was produced, which included a declaration of the consumer's wishes for products and services. If it is truly what the client desires, we must provide it. What is the most common issue that users have while utilizing batteries? When it is most required, it is no longer usable. So what does the number one battery need to do? Of course, the durability is something we must promote, right? Unfortunately, this isn't the case. The fact that another corporation already owns the concept is something that researchers never tell you. These researchers just want to urge their clients, you, to expand their marketing initiatives. The argument goes that if you spend enough money on something, you will eventually master it, right? Wrong. Burger King fell bad a few years ago and never recovered. According to a market research survey, the word quick contributes the most to the fast food business. Nothing out of the ordinary. So Burger King went to the advertising division and told them, if the world wants to be quick, our commercials have to tell them we're fast. McDonald's was recognized as America's fastest-selling hamburger, which the researchers overlooked. McDonald's is the owner of the term fast. Burger King, undeterred, started their ad with the slogan, "Best food for quick times." The show rapidly devolved into a flop. The advertising agency was dismissed, the board of directors was removed, the firm was forced to be sold, and the downward spiral continued. For breaking the monopoly legislation, many people have paid a high price. 7. The law of ladder. Depending on the rung of the ladder you're on, you'll need to use a different method. While your major marketing aim is to stay at the top of the customer's mind, even if your efforts aren't effective, you won't lose the war. When your brand is in second or third position, there are techniques to employ. Not all goods are created equal. Customers have a system order in their heads that they employ while making marketing decisions. There is a product ladder in each field, and each ladder has a brand name on it. Let us discuss automobile rental services. The Hertz Corporation has gained a foothold in the minds of customers and has risen to the top of the food chain. Avis is in second position, followed by National. Your marketing approach should be based on when you first entered the customer's mind and where you are now as a result. Why naturally the higher the rung, the better. Avis, for example, has long promoted the excellent quality of its service vehicle rental. One of the company's commercials reads, "Finest in rent-a-cars." Customers are taken aback by it. wondering how they can obtain the greatest service without being at the top of their rating system? Then Avis did what it needed to do in order to get a competitive advantage in the eyes of its clients. Avis recognizes their place in the product hierarchy. Avis is the second largest vehicle rental firm in the United States. So, what brought you here? Because we put in more effort. Avis has lost money for the past 13 years. Then after claiming second place, they began to amass a large sum of money. Avis was sold to ITT shortly after, and ITT promptly commissioned advertisements proclaiming, Avis is going to be number one. Avis is going to be number one. No, they're not number one, customers think. In my opinion, they are not at the top of the ladder. As a consequence, when clients need to hire a car, they pick up the phone and dial Hertz's number. The campaign plan ended up being a flop. Avis's narrative was unnoticed by many marketers. They believe the firm succeeds because it works harder, for example, has a better service. But it isn't the case in the end. Avis is effective because it has already established a mental association with Hertz. Avis made the same error as many other marketers. Adelphi University of Garden City, Long Island, recently made a comparison to Harvard University. Wait a minute, Adelphi University isn't in my brain, high school grads remark. Adelphi University, on the other hand, has struggled to attract great students. It is critical to make an informed decision. Customers select which information is acceptable and which should be denied using their own value bar. To put it another way, clients will only accept new information if it aligns with the value scale they already have in mind. Everything else is outright rejected. When comparing Chrysler vehicles to Honda vehicles, few individuals would exchange in their Preludes or Accords for Plymouths or Dodges. Comparing an old Dodge with a new Honda Accord sounds a bit ludicrous until we see the results, says the Chrysler commercial. When comparing an old Dodge automobile with more than 100,000 kilometers of miles to a new Honda, over 100 consumers were questioned, according to the ad. Dodge automobiles were chosen by the majority, 58%. Irrational, but not necessarily not true. What about the customer's mental product ladder? How many steps does the ladder have? It also relies on whether or not the product is of interest. Daily use items, tobacco, beer, soft beverages, toothpaste, breakfast, etc., are popular and offer a wide range of consumer value ladders. Tables and chairs, furniture, lawn mowers, baggage bags, and other items that are not usually purchased have few rungs on the value ladder. Even if they are not purchased frequently, things associated to personal pride, cars, watches, etc., bracelets, cameras, are of considerable importance to the value scale with numerous levels. Customer ratings are often lower for products that are not regularly purchased and are connected with a negative experience. 3 examples are car batteries, tires, and life insurance. There is no ladder in the ranking for products that are not loved at all and are only purchased once in a lifetime. Do you ever find yourself in this situation? Have you heard of the Batesville Casket Camp, which makes coffins? Probably not, despite the fact that one firm controls more than half of the market. There's a link between market segmentation and where your product ranks on the customer satisfaction scale. You normally obtain twice as much market share as the brand below you and only half as much as the brand above you. Acura, for example, is number 1 in Japan's premium passenger vehicle segment, followed by Lexus and Infiniti. Acura sold 143 to 708 vehicles in the United States last year, Lexus 71,206 units, and Infiniti 34,980 units. According to the 421 computation, the connection between the 3 automobile brands is right. The battle between Acura, Lexus, and Infiniti is still in its early phases. The vehicles are still fresh and well-liked by the public and press. The customer phenomenon will emerge in the long term when the product is no longer exciting. See the law of due diligence in the following chapter. Marketers frequently refer to the category's top 3 as a fair fight. Almost infrequently, in fact. The dominant brand must ultimately strangle the second, and the second must inevitably suffocate the third. Gerber, Beech Nut, and Heinz are 3 infant food brands. Budweiser, Miller, and Coors are examples of beers. AT&T, MCI, and Sprint are the companies that provide long-distance phone service. What is the maximum number of ladders that may be used? In the customer's perspective, It appears to be rule number 7. Ask a few people to recall all the brands in a certain category. Even the most well-known companies are seldom remembered by more than 7 individuals. According to Dr. George A. Miller, a Harvard psychologist, the normal brain can only handle 7 units at a time. As a result, 7 is a popular number to remember. The phone contains 7 digits, 7 wonders of the world, 7 cards, Snow White, and 7 dwarfs, and 7 types of cancer symptoms. Your product category or ladder may be too tiny at times. A tiny fish in a large pond is preferable than a large fish in a small pond. In other words, being third on the big ladder is sometimes preferable to being first on the tiny ladder. 7-Up is at the top of the soda chang ladder, with Sprite coming in second. However, the cola ladder is far larger than the lemon soda ladder among non-alcoholic beverages, with nearly 2 out of every 3 non-alcoholic beverage drinkers in the United States drinking cola. As a result, 7-Up climbed the cola ladder with a marketing campaign dubbed the Uncola. As opposed to coffee, tea, cola drinks being phased out in favor of 7-Up. In addition, sales of 7-Up surged to third place among non-alcoholic beverages marketed in the United States. Unfortunately, due to a number of rules that will be mentioned later, 7-Up has fallen out of third position in recent years. Chapter 12. Expansion. The rating scale is a straightforward yet effective comparison that may assist you in resolving marketing issues. Before you begin any marketing campaign, ask yourself the following questions. Where do we stand on the customer's rating scale? Another glitch or a top-notch performance? Or perhaps not at all? Then, depending on your location on the ladder, ensure your program is realistically performed. 8. The law of doubles. Every market is, in the end, a 2-horse race. Initially, each product was a multi-step ladder with numerous stages. Nevertheless, the multi-step ladder progressively became a 2-step ladder. Eveready and Duracell are the battery brands. Kodak and Fuji are 2 manufacturers of photographic film. Hertz and Avis are 2 vehicle rental companies. Listerine and Scope are 2 mouthwash brands. McDonald's and Burger King have the best burgers. When it comes to footwear, Nike and Reebok are 2 of the most well-known brands. Crest and Colgate are the 2 most popular toothpaste brands. When you look at marketing from a distance, it's simple to see how the struggle generally devolves into a competition between 2 big competitors, often a well-known old brand and a newcomer. There were 3 major brands of a product in 1969. Small brands dominated the remaining 60% of the market. While the leading brand owned 25%, the second brand 25%, and the third brand 6%. According to the duality rule, this market separation is unsustainable, and it also predicts that the top brand would lose market share while the second will gain market share. After 20 years, the leading brand has decreased to 45% of the market, the second to 40%, and the third to 3%. Coca-Cola, Pepsi-Cola, and Royal Crown Cola are the brands involved. This rule applies to any brand, regardless of location. Consider the 3 long-distance airlines. AT&T owns 65% of the market, MCI has 17%, and Sprint has 10%. In the phone battle, who will win and who will lose? In the far future, there is no way of knowing what will happen. Chapter 17. The Law of Unpredictability. MCI may be gambled on by a bookmaker. MCI came in second position after beating Sprint, implying that MCI must emerge as a contender to AT&T. In the third rung of the ladder, Sprint may feel at ease. Although 9% may not seem like much, it equates to $6 billion in yearly revenue. In addition, the school is still quickly expanding. Sprint, on the other hand, may be in real problems in the long run. Look into the Royal Crown Cola Company's demise. In 1969, Royal Crown breathed fresh life into its dealer network, opening a 350 bottling factory and hiring the former head of rival pet foods, as well as former Coke and Pepsi executives. In addition, advertising organizations such as Wells, Rich, Green, a big New York advertising agency, joined the fray. "We're here to put a stop to Coke and Pepsi," Mary Wells Lawrence, the agency's president, stated. Only one brand, Royal Crown, was left standing in the end. Third place is a difficult position to hold in a mature sector. Take, for example, the domestic automobile business. Chrysler was in peril, despite Mr. Lee's gallant efforts. Marketing is a two-car race in the long term. Concerning the video game industry, video games, Nintendo owned 75% of the market school in the late 1980s. Sega and NEC are the two businesses competing in the race. Today, Nintendo and Sega compete side by side, with NEC lagging far behind. In the end, marketing is still a two-way street. The time of each field, however, may vary. After 2 or 3 seasons, video games may be observed immediately. Long-distance telephones may have a 2 or 3 decade market. The aviation industry is as well. American Airlines dominates the market with a 20% share, a forward-facing nose, and most likely a Coca-Cola in the sky. Delta and United Airlines are locked in a competitive war for 18% of the market. Either one will take off like Pepsi, while the other will be forced to hang its head like Royal Crown. Marketing is, in the end, a race between two airlines. Is it possible that these results are predetermined? Obviously, it isn't the case. Other marketing rules may also have an impact on the outcome. Furthermore, given that your marketing program complies with marketing rules, your marketing program might have a significant impact on your income. When you're in a poor position, such as third like Royal Crown, you shouldn't rush to get out of it. Attack the two stronger opponents who are leading the game. It is necessary to establish a lucrative haven. Chapter 5, Law of Focus. Understanding that marketing is a two-horse race can help you design your short-term approach in the long run. In most cases, the number 2 position is never readily visible. The insider's resourcefulness will determine what occurs in the following stage. Take, for example, laptop computers. Toshiba now holds a market share of 21%. However, there are 5 companies in the number 2 spot, Zenith, Compaq, NEC, Tandy, and Sharp, who each own 8 to 10% of the market. It was a joy to see all 6 horses enter the turn, which could only accommodate 2. Will it be Toshiba? And if so, whose firm? Which firm will come in second? It's a disaster from an economic standpoint. Given how many resources are squandered in various industries, such as the laptop computer industry. There are 130 laptop brands on the market right now. According to the twofold law of marketing, just a few of these companies will remain until the globe welcomes the 21st century. Take a look at the history of the American automobile industry. In 1904, 60 different firms manufactured 195 different automobiles. Over the next 10 years, 531 businesses were founded and 346 businesses were shuttered. There were 108 vehicle brands left in 1923. By 1927, the figure had fallen to 44. Ford and General Motors now dominate the domestic car sector, as seen by Chrysler's uncertain future. The top 2 rungs of the marketing ladder are where successful marketers concentrate their efforts. Only organizations that are number 1 and number 2 in their field can hope to win in a global arena where competition is intensifying, remarked Jack Welch, the famed president and CEO of General Electric. Others that are unable to do so must collect, close, or sell. Companies like Procter & Gamble have become so dominant as a result of this type of thinking. The Procter & Gamble brand is always top or second in 32 of 44 product categories in the United States. In a growing market, the 3rd and 4th places appear to be highly appealing. Sales rose and the market school was inundated with new and misinformed consumers. Because these clients don't always know which brand is at the top, they frequently select the one that appears to be the most enticing or fascinating. This sort of brand is ranked in the 3rd or 4th place. As time passes, these clients gain experience and grow smarter. They seek the leading brand because they have the mistaken belief that the leading brand must be superior. We say it again. Customers assume that marketing is a product battleground. This mindset maintains the 2 brands at the top. They must be the best since they are the first to arrive. The law of opposites. There is a flaw in every strength. When the first person is powerful, the person in second position has a chance to flip, like a wrestler who uses his opponent's power to defeat him. A corporation must devise a strategy to dethrone the dominant firm. Research the firm above you if you want to get a grip on the second rung of the ladder. What is their greatest strength and how can they transform it into a weakness? You must first determine the character of the leader before demonstrating the polar opposite to your clients. To put it another way, attempt to do things better, but in a different way. New businesses frequently compete with existing businesses. Coca-Cola is a product that has been around for hundreds of years. Only 7 people on the planet are aware of the Coke recipe, which is stored in a safe in Atlanta. Coca-Cola is a well-known and reliable brand. Pepsi-Cola, on the other hand, used the law of opposites to invert the essence of cola and become the preferred beverage of a new generation, the Pepsi generation. Customers in a certain product category appear to be divided into 2 groups: those who want to buy the leader's items and those who don't want to buy the leader's products. Goods, on the other hand, are more likely to appeal to the second category of consumers. To put it another way, if you're up against the leader, you have to take away all of the consumers who wouldn't purchase from him. There will be no one left to drink Royal Crown Pepsi if old people drink Coke and young people drink Pepsi. Many businesses in the second position are attempting to outperform the leader, which is a mistake. You must position oneself as a viable option. The reputation of Time magazine is founded on sleek writing. So Newsweek conducts things a little differently, saying, "We split facts according to views of view." To put it another way, Newsweek magazine took a stand in the editorial section, not the news section. You have to be brutal at times. Scope, delectable flavored mouthwash, dubbed medicine breath by competitor Listerine. But it's not only about defeating your opponent. The law of opposites is a two-edged sword as well. It necessitates striking an opponent's weak place, which the customer sees right away. You find yourself smelling like a hospital as mouthwash with Listerine. Return the blade to its original position as soon as possible. Scope is a tasty mouthwash that also eliminates germs. In the world of mouthwash as well, there is a good illustration of why excluding the leader is futile. Micron mouthwash was created in 1961 by Johnson & Johnson with an emphasis on scientific superiority. Within a few months, Micron had surpassed Listerine as the #2 brand, but with the goal of destroying bacteria. Mark of a scientist. When Procter & Gamble developed Scope mouthwash in 1995, it took advantage of Scope's opposite position to become the second most popular brand. When Micron had just 1% of the mouthwash market in 1978, Johnson & Johnson had to withdraw from the market. When Beck Beer was introduced to the U.S. market, it created its own set of challenges. It wasn't the first imported beer, Heineken, and it wasn't even the first German beer, Lowenbrau. You've had the most famous German beer in America, Lowenbrau. Now try the most famous German beer in Germany. Beck's is now the second most popular European beer in the United States. When it comes to German beer, Americans believe the Germans more than they believe themselves. This is a unique example of how the polar opposite of the norm leads to and impacts consumer attitudes today. Since Lowenbrau beer is brewed in the United States, all of this is merely speculation. As a product matures, it frequently develops a variety of flaws. In the pharmaceutical sector, this is especially true. With thousands of medical research on aspirin since its introduction in 1899, it's only natural that people want to know what's wrong with it. In fact, they discovered that aspirin was the cause of stomach ulcers in 1955, just in time for the medicine Tylenol to be developed. Tylenol swiftly replaced aspirin as the symptoms of stomach ulcers became more widespread. For the millions of folks who can't take aspirin, says a Tylenol commercial, Tylenol can now easily place a fake Russian vodka lid on American vodkas like as Smirnoff, Samovar, and Wolfschmidt. Customers are told that American vodkas are created in Connecticut, Pennsylvania, and Indian states, while Stolichnaya is made in Russia's Leningrad, St. Petersburg. And this is correct. If denial is to be successful, the truth must be stated. Another example of inducing denial, this time for your adversary. Royal Doulton, porcelain of Stoke-on-Trent, England, versus Lenox, the porcelain of Pomona, New Jersey, said the advertising on Royal Doulton China's website. People assumed Lenox porcelain was imported, while Lenox's product was created in Pomona, New Jersey, according to the advertisement. Royal Doulton has stated what their products are by declaring the origin of Lenox items. It's actually English porcelain that's been imported. Most people find it difficult to envision Lenox porcelain being handcrafted in a town as awful as Pomona, New Jersey. And folks in England will chuckle if they see this advertisement since Stoke-on-Trent is just as awful as Pomona. The quest for authenticity in marketing is a constant battle. Top brands frequently consider their competitors to be forgers. A good second place must not be afraid to take risks. You injure yourself when you give in without keeping number one in mind, not only for the competitors, but for everyone who works in the same sector. Looking back over the years at the history of Burger King, it has been battling for second place in the burger sector. A new board of directors, new owners, and a slew of advertising firms have all been added to the mix. It doesn't take much of a look at it to notice its flaw. Burger King's most prosperous years were when it first arrived on the scene. "Have it your way," says the ad agency, slamming McDonald's for mass-producing burgers. Then it says broiling, not frying, implying that frying contains more fat than baking. The Big Mac loses to the giant. Whopper beats Big Mac. All of the aforementioned programs have aided Burger King in maintaining its number 2 position. Then, for unknown reasons, Burger King disregarded marketing's law of opposites. It got fearful of McDonald's and stopped attacking them. "The greatest cuisine for the best time," says the motto, "and we do it the way you do it." They even established a scheme to attract youngsters, despite the fact that this is McDonald's major strength. Burger King was no longer able to hang on to second spot. In the assaulting posture, revenue plummeted and never recovered. Burger King made the blunder of failing to take the opposing line. 10. The law of a differentiation. The marketing arena is viewed as an ever-evolving ocean of strains, similar to how the protozoan amoeba splits in vitro. A product type starts off as a single entity. This category, like computers, has grown through time to include mainframe computers, mini-computers, corporate computers, workstations, personal computers, and even laptops, notebooks, and pen computers. Cars, like computers, begin with a distinct category. The market is dominated by 3 brands: Chevrolet, Ford, and Plymouth. Then there's a divide in this category. We now have luxury vehicles, economical cars, medium-priced cars, and inexpensive cars. Large cars, medium cars, tiny cars, sports cars, all-wheel drive vehicles, leisure vehicles, and small passenger cars are all examples of automobiles. In the television industry, ABC, CBS, and NBC may get up to 90% of the audience. Independent broadcasters, cable companies, pay TV firms, public education broadcasters, and in-store and interactive television are all available today. Beer began in a similar way. Now we have imported and domestic beer. Premium beer, low-cost beer, light beer, draft beer, and heavy beer are all available. Non-alcoholic beers are also available. Countries are affected by segregation laws. Example is the chaos in Yugoslavia. There were around 35 empires, kingdoms, and nations in the world in 1776. During WFC, this number more than doubled. There were more than 130 nations in 1970. Across 190 nations are recognized as independent entities around the world today. Consider the music industry. There was simply classical and pop music at times. The program's top 10 singles of the week represent the peak of pop music. The top 40 radio stations also mimic the show, Top 40. Today, the Top 40 program is no longer active because there is no longer a single list. Billboard offers 11 different hit lists: classical, modern jazz, country, crossover, dance, Latin, classical jazz, pop, rap, rhythm and blues, and rock music. There are 11 leaders in all, representing 11 different styles of music: Itzhak Perlman, Garth Brooks, Luciano Pavarotti, Michael Jackson, Mi Mayor Necesidad, Dave Grusin, Enya, Public Enemy, Vanessa Williams, and Bruce Springsteen are among them. Each school has its own personality, as well as its own reason for being, and each school has its own leader, who is seldom the original orthodoxy's founder. IBM dominates the mainframe, Minidix, and Sun workstation markets. Many business executives feel that categories are just combinations, rather than having to grasp distinction. In American boardrooms, the terms synergy and business alliance are popular. IBM is ready to embrace the interface of all sectors, including television, music, publishing, and computers, according to the New York Times. IBM is very much looking forward to the synergy of the phone system with the computer and television makers, the Times reports, through which it is possible to construct an extraordinarily rapid information network. Network. See Chapter 20. Inflationary law. It's not going to happen. Varieties differ from one another rather than combining. In addition, financial services are being investigated. According to the news, there will be no banks, insurance firms, stockbrokers, or mortgage lenders in the future. Financial services firms will be present. However, this has not yet occurred. Prudential, American Express, and other financial services companies have fallen into the financial services trap. Stocks, life insurance, and bank accounts are among the items they purchase. They choose to purchase services from many firms. Leaders must preserve their supremacy by giving each new product a new brand, as GM has done with Chevrolet, Pontiac, Oldsmobile, Buick, and Cadillac in the past, recently Geo and Saturn. Companies make the error of attempting to rebrand another product with a well-known brand name from a previous product. A previous instance of Volkswagen's misfortune occurred when the firm released a little automobile in the United States. The Volkswagen Beetle was a huge success, accounting for 67% of the overall imported automobile market in the United States. Volkswagen began to believe that it could copy General Motors by offering larger, faster, and sportier automobiles as a result of its success. It exported any model produced in Germany to the United States. Unlike GM, though, they all refer to these vehicles as Volkswagens. Different Volks for different individuals, the ad adds. The Beetle, the 412 sedan, the Dasher thing, and a comprehensive variety of passenger vehicles and station wagons are among the 5 types available. Needless to say, the little Beetle is the sole vehicle that continues to sell. Good. Volkswagen has devised a solution to this problem. In the United States, they ceased marketing the Beetle and began selling a huge, fast, and pricey family vehicle under the Volkswagen name. A Vanagon, a Scirocco, a Jetta, a Golf GL, and a Cabriolet are now available. They even constructed a factory to manufacture these odd new automobiles. Regrettably for Volkswagen, the compact vehicle segment continues to grow. People are turning to Japanese automobiles like Toyota, Honda, and Nissan since they can't locate sturdy and inexpensive cars like VW. Volkswagen's market share has decreased from 67% to 4% now. Volkswagen is Europe's best-selling automobile brand. It is not a minor European brand like Saab or Alfa Romeo. Volkswagen automobiles offered in the United States are identical to Volkswagen automobiles sold in Europe. Only the buyer's viewpoint differs. In the United States, Volkswagen denotes a little, unattractive automobile. Nobody wants to purchase a large, gorgeous Volkswagen automobile in America. Chapter 4, Law of Perception. Honda, a Volkswagen rival, chose to join the party. They introduced Acura automobiles instead of using the Honda label for premium vehicles. To minimize confusion with Honda, they also went the expensive route of establishing separate Acura dealerships. Acura was the first luxury Japanese automobile to be offered in the United States. Honda sells more Acuras than Volkswagen sells Volkswagens these days. In 2 categories of automobiles, Honda presently has 2 dominant brands. The fact that leaders are unsure what will happen to their present brands deters them from coming up with a new name for a new product category. General Motors, for example, has been sluggish to decide to make good automobiles in the same way that Mercedes-Benz and BMW have. Another argument is that placing a new automobile brand on top of Cadillac vehicles will enrage Cadillac dealers. To find a middle ground, GM introduced the Cadillac Alante, which retails for $54,000. Like, why would someone spend so much money on a Cadillac when the bomb went off, when their neighbor would assume they only paid $30,000? You can't outsmart the game. General Motors devised a clever strategy to enter the Mercedes market with a new brand. They are welcome to return the antique LaSalle automobile. The importance of timing cannot be overstated. It's possible that launching a new product category is premature. The Nash Rambler was the first tiny American automobile in the 1950s. However, American Motors lacked the courage and financial resources to keep this vehicle afloat. It is preferable to arrive early rather than late. However, you won't be able to enter into the customer's thinking until you've set aside time for development. 11. The law of the prospects and the marketing effect can only be produced over time. Is alcohol an activity stimulant or an activity inhibitor? On a Friday night after work, you can be sure that alcohol is a stimulant if you stroll into one of most bars or restaurants. The loudest indications are the laughing and noise. What if it's 4 a.m.? You'll doubt that alcohol is a stimulant when you witness a few inebriated visitors sleeping on the pavement. Alcohol is a muscular depressant that weakens both the body and the mind chemically. However, alcohol serves as a stimulant for a short time to alleviate man's inhibitions. The same thing happens in marketing. The long-term implications are sometimes the polar opposite of the immediate results. Does a company's business grow or shrink as a result of its sales? It is obvious that boosting sales helps company in the near run. However, there is a mountain of evidence that sales undermine a company's bottom line in the long term, since customers are encouraged not to buy at regular rates. What does a sale communicate to customers, besides then informing them that they may buy something for less? It claims that your regular pricing is too high. Customers prefer to avoid businesses with a reputation for providing discounts after the deal has ended. Retailers discovered that they had to provide discounts virtually frequently in order to retain sales. When going along a shopping street, it's not uncommon to see hundreds of establishments with glass doors adorned with discount signs. Is it true that lowering the price of an automobile increases revenue? Numbers are still available. The amount deducted grows in proportion to the number of automobiles sold. Car sales in the United States have dropped for the sixth year in a row. Siemens, New York's largest furniture retailer, is having a weekly sale, and Siemens has recently gone bankrupt. There is no indication that Castle sales rise as a result of discount sales. Many businesses discover that offering discounts every 3 months is the only way to keep sales from declining. When they sell at a discount, sales plummet almost instantly. In other words, you keep the promotion going not to enhance sales, but to protect sales from declining after the price is no longer reduced. Discounting functions as if it were an oral medicine. You keep doing it because it's too painful to quit taking the drugs. Any type of offer, such as coupons, discounts, leads people to believe that they should only buy when the price is low. What if a business never gave a discount to begin with? Companies that offer daily lows, such as Walmart and Kmart, which both have quickly developing outlets, are significant winners in retail. Almost everywhere you look, you can see prices soaring and then plummeting. Two examples are airlines and supermarkets. However, Procter & Gamble recently took a new tack by instituting pricing homogeneity, which might spark off a new trend. There are several examples of short-term profit and loss in everyday life. Crime is an example in the long run. If you stole a bank for $100,000 and were caught and sentenced to 10 years in jail, you would have made $100,000 in a day's labor, or $10,000 each year over 10 years. It all depends on your perspective. Inflation can boost the economy in the short term, but ultimately leads to recession in the long run. Brazil madmen have not realized this yet. Overeating is psychologically rewarding in the short term, but it produces fat and sadness in the long run. In a variety of other spheres of life, spending money, getting addicted to drugs, the long-term repercussions of your activities are frequently the polar opposite of the short-term effects. So why is it so difficult for individuals to grasp that a promoted program's effectiveness may only be realized over time? In terms of expanding production of short-term items, the promotion has little effect on sales growth. A good illustration of this is the brewing sector. Miller High Life was in difficulty in the early 1970s, with sales increasing at a rate of 27% per year. The Miller's Hour, which encouraged employees to treat themselves with a bottle of Miller beer at the end of the day, propelled the company's prosperity. Then Miller came back and grew greedy, introducing Miller Lite in 1979, a good concept that was buried behind a larger moniker. Chapter 2. Species Law. In a nutshell, both worker beer, High Life, and pellet beer can coexist, High Light. However, advertising the product in the long term decreases the consumption of rival brands. Miller High Life beer was introduced in 1979, 5 years after Miller beer was first introduced. Miller High Life beer sales nearly quadrupled in 5 years, from 8.6 million to 23.6 million barrels. This is the immediate result of raising the product. The long-term impact is negative. Miller High Life sales plummeted from 23.6 million barrels in 1979 to 5.8 million barrels in 1991, a 13-year drop. The downward trend continues. Will Miller Light beers be spared from promotional efforts? Miller created the Miller Genuine Draft in 1986. Because this was the company's first draft beer, it was likewise dubbed Miller, and history was repeated. Miller Lite's sales peaked 5 years later, then began to drop. There is no way to stop the deterioration once it starts. It's difficult to evaluate the impact of product growth unless you know what to look for, especially when executives are preoccupied with their next quarter's reports. Miller Beer went through the same ordeal as Michelob Beer. Regular Michelob sales peaked 3 years after the launch of Michelob Light, then fell for 11 years in a row. Michelob's four kinds, regular, light, strong, and stout, now retail for 25% less than a single Michelob beer sold in 1978, when the Michelob Light was first launched. Coors beer is the same way. Coors Regular's downfall was precipitated by the launch of Coors Light, which now accounts for just a fourth of total sales. Even the king of beers had a bad day. Budweiser beer declined for 3 years in a row after a continuous growth in annual sales. Reason? For the new Bud Light beer. Light beer, such as Miller, Coors, or Anheuser-Busch, may appear to broaden the product variety since it sells well. If you believe what you read in the media, everyone drinks light beer. That is not the case. Currently, 18 years after the Miller Lite light beer was introduced, light beer only accounts for 31% of the beer market. The short long-term consequences of product expansion occurs much faster in another area of marketing. Donald Trump also wears Coca-Cola apparel, U.S. billionaire. Donald was initially successful. Then he branched out into many other directions. He mentions Trump in connection with any bank-sponsored product, including a hotel, 3 casinos, 2 apartment buildings, an airline, and a shopping center. An investor with a strong perspective of a problem of capital turnover and net worth, a clever marketer, a shrewd trader, Fortune magazine praised Trump. Donald was featured on the covers of Time and Newsweek magazines. Today, our Mr. Trudeau owes $1.4 billion in debt. What makes him successful in the short term is also the source of his long-term failure, increased activity. On the surface, marketing appears to be a simple task, but it is not. 12. The law of expansion. There's an unstoppable desire to grow the brand. Most American businesses would undoubtedly go to jail if we went to court for breaking marketing regulations. The expansion law is the most broken law in this book. Worse yet, the company's ongoing expansion is a result of an unconscious attempt. It's as if your closet or desk drawer has become overflowing without your knowledge. When a corporation concentrates on a single product category with many returns, this might be problematic. Soon later, the same firm expanded to create a wide range of items, losing money in the process. Take, for example, IBM. IBM used to make a lot of money when it concentrated on mainframe manufacture. IBM is now involved in almost everything, and the corporation is well-funded. IBM's sales was $65 billion in 1991. The corporation lost $2.8 billion, or about $8 million every day. IBM sells personal computers, business computers, software, computer systems, phones, and other items, in addition to mainframe computers. It has even attempted to manufacture new home computers. IBM invested millions in the development of copiers, which were ultimately sold to Kodak. ROM, the business satellite system, was sold to Siemens, stored. When a business achieves significant success, it invariably plants the germ of future problems. Consider the instance of Microsoft, a successful computer software corporation. Its ticket is worth a lot more than GM's, despite the fact that it's just 1/58 the size of GM's. What is Microsoft's plan for the future? It may be summarized in a single word. More Microsoft Corp is actively attempting to control even the key software program in the personal computer industry, reports the Wall Street Journal. The corporation can acquire up to 70% of the application software industry, stated Michael Maples, Microsoft's first president in charge of applications. What kind of person does this sound like? Sounds like IBM to me. I structured the exercise in the same way that IBM did, with all of the bad ideas. Lotus leads in computing, WordPerfect leads in word processing, and Harvard leads in business graphics. Microsoft used to be the leader in personal computer, but it is currently exploring totally new fields. Microsoft continues to grow by branching out into other sectors. Microsoft just purchased Fox Software for 170 yen USD. You can bet the company will kill the Fox name as Microsoft. Microsoft's strategic vulnerability is manifesting itself in a number of ways. Mr. Gate is putting together a succession of items based on common technology, reported in early 1992 Economics Daily. From mainframes to microcomputers, database systems to charting tools, this position will compete throughout the whole computer software sector. This difficult effort has never been attempted before in the software sector, despite the fact that IBM tried and failed. You won't be able to escape troubles if you strive to please everyone. I'd rather be powerful in one location than weak everywhere, according to one CEO. In its most basic form, product expansion entails adopting the name of a popular product, e.g. A1 steak sauce, and applying it to a new product, e.g. A1 poultry sauce. That appears to be reasonable. We call it A1, and it's a beef dipping sauce, but because people prefer chicken to beef, we'll produce a chicken sauce. And with a name like A1, people would know that the chicken dipping sauce is created by the same company that makes the beef dipping sauce. Marketing, on the other hand, is a fight of perception rather than goods. A1 is a beef dipping sauce in the eyes of customers, not a brand name. Give me a bottle of A1, customers typically say, and no one needs to inquire, what is an A1 again? There are as many methods to expand the product as there are planets in the cosmos. Every day a new method is created. The increase of production never worked out in the long run, especially in the face of stiff competition. The most typical strategy to try to get more market school is to create new varieties. It appears to be correct, but it isn't. When 7-Up was solely lemonade flavored and didn't contain cola, it accounted for 5.7% of the alcohol-free beverage market in 1978. The corporation may then add 7-Up Gold, 7-Up Gold, Cherry 7-Up, and other flavors, 7-Up Cherry flavor. 7-Up now has a market share of barely 2.5%. There are traces of product growth everywhere. That's also why stores are crammed with brands. 1,300 shampoos, 200 cereal breakfasts, and 250 non-alcoholic drinks, to name a few. Any brand that leads a product category is a brand that does not extend the product line. One thing is clear. Take, for example, children's food. Gerber has a 72% market share, significantly ahead of Beechnut and Heinz, two product brand extensions. Companies continue to expand their product lines despite signs of failure. Listed below are a few examples. Soap made with ivory. Ivory shampoo, anyone? Candy, they're lifesavers. What is Lifesavers gum? Bic Throttle, to be precise. Socks by Bic for women. Is there a Chanel perfume for men? Tanqueray is a brand of whiskey made in Scotland. Vodka Tanqueray? Coors Light is a beer made by Coors. What is a Coors Light drink? Heat up the ketchup. Is it possible to cook infant food? The newspaper USA Today is published in the United States. USA Today on television. Adidas is a sportswear brand. Is there a perfume by Adidas? Clothes by Pierre Cardin. What is Pierre Cardin's wine? Jeans from Levi's. Shoes by Levi's. We wanted to take our core brand and put it on new goods, said Colgate-Palmolive President Ed Fogarty. Strengthen and open, says David W. Johnson, General Manager of Campbell Soup, using existing trademarks for new products rather than establishing new brands. We're striving to have a unique identity, says Del Monte CEO, and we're spreading the Del Monte name to other product categories. Daniel Abraham is a writer from the United States. Ultra Slim President. Fasts, soups, pastas, salad dressings, sodas, juices, and Slim Fast Plus diet beverages will be available. Wishing Mr. Abraham delicious luck and a wonderful night. Despite the evidence to the contrary, why do the top levels of management feel the product expansion will succeed? One explanation is that product growth will lose money over time, but make money in the short term. Article 11, Law of Prospects. Extreme commitment to the firm or brand also blinds management. Is the failure of Pepsi Light and Pepsi AM not enough to persuade Pepsi to bring Crystal Pepsi to market? Less is more. Less money made as a result of more items. Full throttle in every way. That appears to be the firm's demand. When do young businesses realize that expanding their product lines is a recipe for disaster? Less is more in this case. Today, if you want to be successful, you must restrict your focus in order to gain a footing in the minds of your clients. What does IBM stand for? It used to be the huge computing field's representation. Mainframe computer. Today, it's everything else, which has no meaning. Why is Sears, Roebuck, in financial trouble? They want everything for everyone because they want it all for themselves. Sears had a huge success in the hard goods, equipment market before branching out into soft goods and fashion. I wonder if fashion models purchased their miniskirts at Sears. The firm even hired model Cheryl Tieger. A corporate plan, according to popular wisdom, must involve the extension of all visions. To put it another way, what sort of concept or idea is big enough to encompass all of the company's goods and services for the existing market and future market projections? A huge canvas tent, according to popular wisdom, is the best strategy. You'll need to lengthen the tent to make it large enough to hold everything you need. IBM constructed a massive computer tent. Nothing from today's or tomorrow's computers leaves the IBM tent. This is a tragedy waiting to happen. IBM will be swept away once new firms, new products, and fresh ideas join the computer sector like the wind. Even if you're as wealthy as IRM, you can't defend a rising computer industry. You must pick, seize, and carefully select each location to expand your tent from a strategic standpoint. General Motors is in the same situation as IBM in terms of strategy. GM didn't skip a beat when it came to anything that was going on behind the wheel. Tourist automobiles, sports cars, low-cost cars, high-cost cars, massive freight trucks, little cars, and even electric vehicles are all available. So what is GM's plan? They will pursue anything that rolls down the road? Product growth is the simplest path for many businesses. Not only does it take money to launch a new brand, but it also takes ideas. A new brand must be the first of its kind to have any chance of success. Chapter 9. The Law of Opposites. Companies wait until a new market is established before entering it, at which point the top two spots are already occupied. As a result, they went back to extending the previous product. Corporate boldness, an uncommon virtue these days, is the product expanding remedy. 13. The Law of a Sacrifice. To get, you must first give. The antithesis of the law of expansion is the law of sacrifice. If you want to be successful today, you must give up. Product, market, and targeted and always changing are the three things that must be sacrificed. The product comes first. What book states that you must sell more in order to make more money? For the man loser, an all-encompassing manufacturing line is a superfluous decoration. If you want to be successful, you must reduce rather than increase your manufacturing line. Take, for example, the firm Emery Air Freight. Emery provides freight forwarding services, and you may ship through them. Small deliveries, large packages, overnight delivery, and sluggish delivery are all options. What does Federal Express do in terms of marketing? The airline concentrates on one service: overnight delivery of small products. Federal Express has grown to be a far larger firm than Emert. Federal Express's strength and sacrifice may be imprinted in the brains of consumers in a matter of hours. You summon the Federal Express when you need it, usually after a night out. So, how did the Federal Express respond? The business followed Emery's lead. It squandered its overnight advantage by paying $10 million for Tiger International's Flying Tiger cargo line. Federal Express has evolved into a global air freight service while not having a global presence. Federal Express lost $1.1 billion in overseas operations over a 21-month period. The game of marketing is one of psychological warfare. It's a perception war, not a product or service war. Federal Express has a strong hold in the overnight market. Federal Express is perceived as an overnight express courier by the client. Federal Express was confronted with a marketing conundrum when it decided to expand into foreign operations. Is it necessary to adopt a local name for international activities? Or you'll have to come up with a new global name. More importantly, how will it compete with DHL, which was the first to join the worldwide shipping service? It's a shame that Federal Express abandoned the overnight notion, and even worse, it didn't strive to replace it with a new one. For a long time, Eveready has been a leader in the battery sector. However, like with most sectors, new technology emerges. The heavy-duty battery was the first breakthrough to revolutionize the battery industry. If you were the CEO of the battery industry, what would you call a strong battery? It's probably called the Eveready heavy-duty battery, and that's precisely what Eveready came up with. Then there was the alkaline battery. The battery used alkaline. Eveready's alkaline battery is once again known as Eveready alkaline battery. This appears to be the case. After that, PR Malaji set up an alkaline power production facility and focused solely on this sort of battery. Furthermore, the corporation renamed it Duracell. The corporation has been able to instill the notion of long-lasting battery in the minds of customers because to the sacrifice of only producing Duracell batteries. Duracell batteries last twice as long as Eveready cells, the ad claims. It was too late for Eveready to alter the name of its alkaline battery to Energizer. Duracell has risen to the top of the battery industry. The corporate world is full of contrasts. Large, diverse, tiny, specialized. Expect complete growth if product expansion and diversity are marketing methods used by an excellent institution. But if it doesn't succeed, most people will be in serious danger. Synthesis is a weak point. The Kraut firm case. Kraut is thought to be a powerful brand. Jams and jellies are a specialty. Only 9% of market schools belong to Kraut, whereas 35% belong to Smuckers. Kraut means anything, but a company named Smuckers has to signify jam and jelly since that's all they manufacture. Kraut received 18% of the mayonnaise market share. Hellmann's, on the other hand, owns 42%. When it comes to market share, Kraut is unrivaled. This trademark, on the other hand, does not contain the Kraut name. Instead, it is the Philadelphia trademark. One cream cheese accounts for 70% of the market. Which retailers are having problems with retail technology today? These are the retail outlets for consumers. What kind of stores are in jeopardy? Those are the stores where you can buy anything. That's a tragedy waiting to happen. Campo, L.J. Hooker, and Gimbels are all facing financial difficulties. Ames and Hills Firm, a retail company, has filed for bankruptcy. Even Macy's, the world's most well-known retailer, has declared bankruptcy. The interstate retailing networks also failed. As a result, interstate department stores examined its finances and chose to concentrate on a single successful product category, children's toys. The company's name was likewise changed to Toys 2 US. Toys 2 US now controls 20% of the national children's toy market. The business is quite profitable. On revenues of $5.5 billion, the corporation had a profit of $326 million last year. Following the toys model has helped a lot of retailers prosper. Formula 2 US, expanding the amount of commodities while reducing the focus of manufacturing. Two examples are Staples, stationery supplies, and Blockbuster Video. Professionals are the primary winners in the retail business in general. Limited Liability Corporation. This store specializes on high-end apparel for working ladies. The Gap Company specializes in marketing teen streetwear. The Benetton Group is a multinational conglomerate based in Italy. Wool and cotton apparel for youthful fashion is their specialty. Victoria's Secret is a clothing line owned by Victoria's Secret, specializes in sultry underwear. The Foot Locker Corporation, it specializes on selling athletic shoes. Banana Republic is a clothing company that specializes on hunting and camping gear. We know we live in a specialized period if Banana Republic can survive with such a clothing system. Let us discuss the second sacrifice. The target market has been identified. Who said that you must find a method to appeal to everyone? Case of Coca-Cola water. Coca-Cola was the first to enter the customer's thoughts and establish a strong position. For instance, in the late 1950s, Coke outsold Pepsi by a factor of 5. What can Pepsi do to fight Coke's most powerful position? Pepsi-Cola devised a strategy based on the notion of sacrifice in the early 1960s. Except for the market for young people, the corporation sacrifices all forms of marketplaces. The corporation then wisely used young icons Michael Jackson, Lionel Richie, and Don Johnson to tap into this demographic. Pepsi had bridged the gap in less than a generation. In the United States, Pepsi is just 10% behind Coca-Cola. In fact, Pepsi-Cola outsells Coca-Cola in supermarkets. However, the urge to extend tents is always evident in Pepsi's success. It recently succumbed to temptation. Pepsi-Cola is too huge for the Pepsi generation, says an advertisement in Age magazine, Young People, a marketing campaign that promotes Pepsi as if it were a non-alcoholic beverage for the public. Must have a degree, says Pepsi's new campaign. The commercial features celebrities such as Yogi Berra and Regis Philbin sipping Pepsi. We can earn more money and we need to widen our horizons, stated a Pepsi official from BBDO. Let's have a broader net and capture more individuals. Coca-Cola is the most powerful brand in the world, according to Fortune magazine. Why should a firm like Pepsi-Cola change its strategy so significantly when it had adopted a plan of restricting its emphasis right in front of the CEO's nose? Why is it that there is a divine conviction that casting a bigger net would capture more visitors when there are so many examples to the contrary? When we establish a facility for Budweiser, we have to remember all the people over 21 years old, whether they are male or female, black or white, the business president added. Take a look at the cigarette advertisements. They include both men and women. Why is this the case? In an age when the majority of cigarette users were males, tobacco firms wanted to broaden their market to include women as well. So, what does Philip Morris do for a living? The firm focuses only on guys. The corporation whittled it down even more to cowboys, a male-dominated audience. The name Marlboro was given to this brand. Marlboro is now the world's most popular tobacco retailer. Marlboro is the most popular cigarette among both men and women in the United States. The market isn't the goal. To put it another way, the market's aim. Your target market is more than simply the folks who will buy your product. Despite the fact that Pepsi's target demographic is young people, the market will be open to everyone. Pepsi-Cola will be consumed by a 50-year-old who want to be 29. The target audience for Marlboro advertising is cowboys, but the market school is everyone. Do you know how many cowboys there are left in the United States? Few. All Marlboro cigarettes were smoked. Constant change is the greatest cost. Where does it say that while assessing the budget, you must adjust your plan every year? You will go out of your way if you try to follow the market. The greatest strategy to keep a stable posture is to avoid making drastic changes right away. At first, the People Express airline had a strong, shrinking position. It's a no-frills airline that doesn't care about any one city and offers low fares. No one asks, "Where are we going?" as they board a People Express jet. They don't need to know where they're going as long as it's inexpensive. What does People Express do once they've made it big? It attempts to be all things to all people. It purchased modern equipment, such as a Boeing 747. It began by focusing on large cities with several lines, such as Chicago and Denver, as well as Europe. Frontier Airlines was purchased by the airline. The airline made several changes, including the addition of first-class seats. People Express quickly lost altitude and was only able to avoid bankruptcy by selling the company to Taxes Air. White Casualty, on the other hand, has never changed positions, one White Castle. Today's Casualty is identical to a White Castle from 60 years ago, offering the same frozen sliders, frozen pork patties, at unbelievable low costs. Would you suppose White Castle's annual profit averages over $1 million? Better than Burger King, but not quite as bad as McDonald's. Those who are willing to make sacrifices will be successful. 14. The law of attributes. There is an effective opposite for each trait. We stressed in Chapter 6, the law of monopoly, that you cannot possess a term or a place that belongs to your opponent. You'll have to come up with your own phrase. You'll have to come up with a new characteristic. Frequently, businesses want to exclude the best candidate. They must know what they're doing, they explain. All right then, let's do it again. That isn't a good plan. Finding an opposing attribute that places you against a strong opponent is a preferable option. The term opposite, not similar, is the essential word here. Similarly there is nothing that can be done. Coca-Cola is the original and most popular beverage among the elderly. Pepsi succeeds because its goods appeal to a younger demographic. After Crest toothpaste mastered the term cavities, other toothbrushing products had to move away from the term and focus on other qualities such as taste, whiter, breath protection, and more recently, free from caustic soda. A fight of ideas is what marketing is all about. So if you want to be successful, you must have a strong concept of what your own strengths are and where you should concentrate your efforts. You'd best sell cheap, extremely cheap, if you don't try. Some argue that not all characteristics are equally creative. Some characteristics matter more to the buyer than others. You must explore and master the most crucial quality. The most essential feature of toothpaste is its ability to prevent cavities. It has a proprietor. The law of monopoly highlights the basic truth that an attribute is regarded lost whenever it is obtained by an opponent first. You must advance to an attribute that is less powerful than give off and accepts a smaller share field. Your mission is to collect additional qualities, magnify your attribute values, and therefore grow your greater share. IBM has controlled the computer business for many years with traits such as large and powerful, and firms who try to emulate these attributes are not successful. RCA, GE, Univac, Burroughs, Honeywell, NRC, and Control Data all invested heavily in mainframe computers. Then came the introduction of the tiny characteristic by a Boston startup, and mini computers were formed. Today, the little has expanded to the point that IBM, the world's largest machine manufacturer, is in severe jeopardy. In contrast to their present goods, Gillette, the world leader in razor blades, does not laugh at qualities. With improved razor blade technology and a knife case scrape cartridge, this corporation leads the globe. When a new firm appears in France, it sells the disposable razor, which is the polar opposite of the disposable razor. Gillette might chuckle and continue to explore what Americans desire in terms of hefty, pricey, high-tech American-made razors. They did not, though. Instead, Gillette created their own one-of-a-kind razor, dubbed Good News. Gillette won the razor war once, and then resigned after spending a lot of money. The disposable razor market is now controlled by Gillette Good News razors. It has outgrown the razor blade industry. You can't estimate the magnitude of new qualities, so don't laugh about it. Burger King tried, failed to steal McDonald's quick reputation. What exactly is Burger King's role? Why not use the polar opposite property? Naturally, the polar opposite term, slow, is unsuitable for the fast food industry. However, Burger King's definition of broiling has a sluggish element to it. Even a single visit to a McDonald's outlet reveals another quality that McDonald's has mastered: children. McDonald's is proof that this is where children draw their parents in. This is a situation akin to the Coca-Cola versus Pepsi debate. Burger King has the opportunity to position itself as a place for adults, including children, if McDonald's owns the kids. I don't want to be referred to as a kid. That would appeal to everyone above the age of 10, which isn't a terrible market. To make that idea a reality, Burger King should have followed the law of sacrifice and given McDonald's the entire baby market. While it would have cost Burger King a few customers, it did manage to brand McDonald's as Videoland. Chapter 9. The Law of Opposites. Burger King needed a word to get this concept into the minds of customers. It's possible that this word is the phrase, grow up. Burger King's barbecue has been a part of my life since I was a child. Burger King's new concept can also be applied to the board of directors. McDonald's is terrified, which is a good sign of a successful program. 15. The law of the straight talk. The customer provides you an edge when you admit a flaw. A firm or a person's nature is to reject admitting a problem. The importance of positive thinking has been drilled into our minds for years. The eternal genius of books and newspapers is positive thinking. So it may surprise you to learn that the most successful technique to get into your clients' heads is to first accept a disadvantage and then transform it into an advantage. In terms of automobile rental services, Avis is only second. It's got to be nice stuff with a name like Smuckers. The VW of the 1970s will stay ugly for a little longer. Joy is the world's most costly perfume. What happened to the slogans mentioned above? Doesn't it seem like there's already a sliver of honesty in the marketing program? First and foremost, confessing is the most effective way to release anger. Every single allegation of a flaw will be recognized as truth right now. A declaration of positive merit, on the other hand, is regarded as self-praise, particularly in the context of advertising. To demonstrate the benefit to please consumers, you must have proof. It's preferable to a species that concedes flaws without evidence. The VW of the 1970s will always be ugly. Customers will think, an unattractive automobile on the outside, but dependable machinery on the inside. Joy is the world's most costly perfume. Customers of the brand will believe that if one is willing to pay up to $375 USD for 30 milliliters of perfume, it is the best perfume. That has to be a good thing with a name like Smucker's. Most businesses, particularly family businesses, seldom tinker with their names. Nonetheless, the Smucker family firm accomplished it, and as a result, it is the market leader in jams and jellies. If you have a poor name, you have two choices: change it or experiment with it. You can't afford to disregard the negative reputation. As a result, Gabling's, Grolsch, and Grasediak beers are no longer available at supermarkets. In terms of automobile rental, Avis is only second. So why would you want to utilize it? It will very certainly have to strive to serve more people. Avis is a well-known second-rate automobile rental company. So, why do consumers do it? Accept those self-evident facts? When you can't alter a preconceived customer's mind, all of your marketing efforts must focus on applying clever marketing strategies. Just a second-rate carrier, as clever as the Avis program. People are cautious of firms who seek to offer them anything because of the overpraised optimistic attitude on our society's powerful information networks. Few firms have ever admitted to having a problem. People are more open to an issue when a corporation begins to recognize it. Consider how you respond when someone asks, "What issue do you solve?" Do you normally have a fever, ready to attend and assist right away? Consider this. If someone opened a conversation by complimenting what they were doing, you'd be less likely to listen. You're in a terrific position to market your point of view because of people's open-mindedness. Scope joined the mouthwash industry a few years ago with the slogan, "Good-tasting mouthwash." The clue is that Listerine is unpleasant to eat. What is Listerine supposed to do? It's impossible to assure people that Listerine tastes nothing like that. This just adds to the customer's poor impression of the goods. It might become a lot worse. Listerine, on the other hand, skillfully employed the law of straight talk. The flavor you despise twice a day. It's not only about admitting that folks don't like the flavor. That is correct. As a result, Listerine is said to destroy germs. Customers will be pleased. The dilemma is addressed by being direct, arguing that something that smells like an antiseptic will undoubtedly kill the germs. General Foods, for example, claims to being a breakfast food. The Grape Nuts brand is all on delivering progressive delight and encouraging customers to try meals for a week. Its revenues have climbed by 23%. Last but not least, the law of frank discourse must be used with caution and finesse. To begin with, your fault has been extensively replicated as a flaw. It must elicit consent from the customer. The consumer will be perplexed and strange, "What is this?" if the fault is not identified soon. Second, you must go straight to the pros. The aim of candor is not to apologize. Straight Talk's goal is to persuade your clients to do business with you. This law just confirms an ancient adage. The best policy is honesty. 16. The law of unity. It just takes one action in any scenario to achieve substantial outcomes. Many marketers consider success to be the culmination of several efforts. They believe that success may be reached via effort and correct force and performance, regardless of plan. If they work with a product category leader, they frequently squander their resources on multiple projects, as if they believe that participating in everything is the greatest way to expand. If they can't work with the leader, they'll typically try to appear like they're in charge, but better. President Saddam Hussein, for example, stated, "What we need to do is fight a bit harder and then work hard." The secret to marketing success is not to try harder. The difference isn't significant whether you confront more difficulties or have more benefits. As a corporation grows larger, The law of average reduces the benefits as it strives to accomplish more. History has shown that the only way to be effective in marketing is to take aggressive action. To put it another way, it only takes one action to create major outcomes in a particular scenario. Good generals regularly scout the battlefield, seeking opportunities for a daring ambush with the least amount of enemy notice. It was difficult to locate one. It's generally tough to find more than one. BH. The raid was dubbed the lowest recruit by military planner Liedel Hart. The Allies landed at Normandy, where the waves and reefs led the Germans to believe that no one had picked a landing spot. The same may be said of marketing. Usually there is a vulnerable spot where the opponent may inflict harm. That is where we must focus all of our troops in order to invade. The automotive business is an excellent example of this. For many years, GM's midsize automobile was its key selling point. Chevrolet, Pontiac, Oldsmobile, Buick, and Cadillac are just a few of the brands available. Ford, Chrysler, and American Motors were all handily defeated by GM. The GM supremacy became infamous. The element of surprise is crucial to marketing success, just as it is in the military. General Hannibal traversed the Alps, a seemingly insurmountable obstacle. Hitler moved the soldiers through the Ardennes, the Maginot Line's corridor, where the French thought tanks couldn't traverse, and through Maginot's fortifications. Only two major attacks on GM have occurred in recent years. Through GM's Maginot Barrier, both acts are flanking. Toyota, Datsun, and Honda were among the Japanese automakers that arrived discreetly. Germans rush in with Mercedes and BMW high-end automobiles. Due to the effectiveness of the Japanese and German flanking operations, GM was obliged to try to protect its stock by fending off cars at the top and bottom of the product line. Cadillac is far too inexpensive to put a halt to the importation of high-priced German automobiles. GM took the critical choice to produce just numerous mid-size vehicles on the same chassis in order to save money and retain profitability. As a result, no one could tell the difference between a Chevy and a Pontiac, or an Oldsmobile and a Buick. The car's resemblance to the European-style Taurus and Sable damaged GM's mid-size sedan and opened the way for Ford's European-style Taurus and Sable. The Japanese then entered the market with Acura, Lennox, and Infiniti vehicles. GM is now weak in all areas. Concerning the Coke beverage, Coca-Cola is currently engaged in a two-front conflict between the original Coke and the new Coke. New Coke is lingering in the market as Coca-Cola recovers. We've all heard Coca-Cola slogans like, "We taste for you." The true option. "Catch the wave," says the narrator. "Red, white, and blue as well as you." It's impossible to top the sensation. "You can't beat the genuine thing," he said lately. There was no movement, not even a single finger. Coca-Cola executives continue to try. A Hollywood-owned studio was also engaged to give creative assistance. Thousands of people visit the Coca-Cola meeting room in Atlanta every day to exhibit fresh slogans. Coca Senior Cola's executives will gather around a conference table to debate the issue of dynamism, while the hypothesis that randomness may be correct. This is not a productive approach to work if you throw out all the things you can think of. Aside from trading, Coke needs to make improvements. Cole has just two options, as we can see. Take a step back or go forward. First and foremost, Coke had to swallow deeply in order to rid himself of New Coal, not because it resulted in losses or a loss of face, but because New Coke's scarcity prohibited the firm from employing one of its most powerful weapons. Coke was able to exploit the law of focus and revive the notion of real to use against Pepsi with the introduction of New Coke into the archives. To light a fire under the Pepsi generation, Coke might go on television and say, "Okay, kids, we're not trying to force you. We have the genuine stuff for you when you're ready." That might be the beginning of the end of Pepsi generation, if Pepsi-Cola doesn't damage itself first. This is not just a simple yet effective notion, but it is also a feasible Coke movement. It will merely mine a term that Coke already owns in the customer's mind: the genuine deal. Marketing executives need to know what's going on in the industry when they're looking for a simple notion or concept. On the front lines of the surface, they must wade through the muck. They must understand what works and what does not. They need to put forth a lot of effort. Because the cost of misunderstanding is too great, Management is unable to determine who has the authority to make crucial choices. That is exactly what happened to GM. The marketing campaigns flopped when the financiers took over. The zeros, not the brand, are the preoccupation of the financiers. What is known is that the numbers follow the mark in the same way. If you're stranded at the base headquarters and didn't engage in the program, it's difficult to discover a single route of travel. 17. The law of unpredictability. You can't forecast the future if you weren't the one who designed your opponent's strategy. A future hypothesis lies at the heart of most marketing strategies. However, marketing strategies predicated on what will happen in the future are frequently incorrect. How can you forecast your market 3 years in advance when you have hundreds of computers and an army of meteorologists? If no one can predict the weather 3 days ahead of time, how can you predict your market 3 years ahead of time? The IBM Corporation devised a marketing strategy to connect all personal computers, PCs, to its central computer. It's referred to as Office Vision by the firm. Next, with the help of companies like Sun Microsystems, Microsoft, and others, aim to die in the egg. The Office Vision strategy, in a sense, foresees all competitors. Marketing failures are frequently caused by an inability to forecast rival response. I believe the Confederates knew about this, General Pickett said when asked which Confederate leader was responsible for the disaster at Gettysburg. Some argue that America's largest problem is a lack of forethought, and that American administrators overthink everything. Is it true that getting rid of the long-term plans will make the situation better? From the outside, this anxiety is understandable. However, it is critical to distinguish between long-term and short-term consequences. The majority of the company's troubles in the U.S. are unrelated to the short-term issue of marketing philosophy. They're all based on short-term financial considerations. The majority of businesses report on a quarterly basis. That is the problem's solution. Parameters define a company's life and death. The most visible follower of this path is Harold Ganin of the well-known business ITT. To enhance his revenues, he motivates, challenges, and tortures his directors. Genin's efforts culminate in a house made up of strewn cards. ITT is, and always has been, a shell. Accounting is good, but marketing isn't. GM was doing well until the financiers came over and began focusing on statistics rather than brands. They allowed the idea, as well as the different Fred P. Sloan brands, fall apart. To acquire the figures in the short term, every director, every department fate, must begin pursuing the market presence school. Short-term planning might help you approach your product or organization from a fresh perspective or terminology. Then you put together a long-term marketing strategy to establish a program that emphasizes that concept or viewpoint. It is a long-term tendency, not a long-term plan. The notion of home delivery and establishing a rapid and efficient pizza delivery system is Tom Monahan's short-term vision for Domino's Pizza. His long-term goal is to launch the nation's first countrywide home delivery service as soon as practicable. Monahan will not be able to master the term home delivery unless there is a mechanism in place. The agent system is sufficient for nationwide advertising. He was successful in both of his objectives. Domino's now has a market capitalization of $2.65 billion and controls 40% of the home delivery market. Monahan does everything independently. It's a 10-year strategy. So what are your options? What is the best way to deal with the unpredictability? While you can't foretell the future, you can spot patterns and use them to your advantage. The United States of America, for example, is heading in the direction of health. This trend is paving the way for a slew of new goods, particularly those that promote better health. The success of Healthy Choice frozen entrees exemplifies the concept of capitalizing on a long-term trend. In March 1989, the Conagra Company released a product named Healthy Choice. However, there were several low-salt, low-fat meals on the market many years ago, but they were all distinct sorts of foods. Because it was based on existing names, the product failed. Conagra was the first firm to capitalize on the developing trend with a simple brand, Healthy Choice, and an idea. Conagra made the error of extending the Healthy Choice product beyond the main courses. It was a breach of the law of sacrifice. The risk of bias-based work is that it is based on speculation. Many businesses make snap judgments about how long this trend will endure. If you trust the forecasters from a few years ago, we now exclusively eat grilled fish and charcoal grilled poultry. Thankfully, there are still hamburgers today. Faking it the future will return to the same as the present is just as terrible as an empirical assessment of a trend. When you think nothing will change, you're predicting the future with the same level of assurance as when you expect something will change. Remember Peter's law? The unexpected happens all of the time. In dealing with the future, trend tracking might be beneficial. Futures are unpredictably unexpected, and market research can only add to the confusion rather than solve it. Research excels in measuring the past, but fresh ideas and concepts are difficult to quantify. No one has a pattern, and no one knows until they are presented with a difficult choice. An ancient example comes from studies conducted prior to the introduction of the plain paper copier by Xerox. The results demonstrate that no one wants to pay 5 cents for a plain paper copy when they can receive one for 1.5 cents on thermofax foil. Xerox has given up. The world hasn't believed this finding in recent years, and history has proven this study erroneous. Creating an agile capability for your firm is another strategy to deal with an uncertain world. Because if you want to last a long time, you must modify your product as soon as a change occurs. In the past, General Motors was sluggish to respond to the trend of people preferring to drive tiny vehicles, which cost the firm a lot of money. IBM was gradually learning that consumers were losing interest in mainframe computers, which cost the corporation a lot of money. Workstations are a serious threat to both large and small PCs these days. Workstation contains a lot of features at a reasonable price. IBM needed to become a substantial competitor in an area dominated by Sun Microsystems and Hewlett-Packard if it wanted to keep its advantage in computer manufacture. A natural movement may result in the creation of a new generic name. IBM's best bet could be to call its new high-performance workstations PMs, like they did with PCs. Personal mainframe is abbreviated as PM. These two general labels refer to the speed and power of desktop computers, and IBM controls these terms in the eyes of customers. This combo is quite potent. It's possible that an issue will occur within IBM. The name personal mainframe might be daunting to both mainframe and personal computer makers. There will be complaints to the board of directors that the new name personal mainframe will diminish two significant revenue streams, the personal computer and the mainframe. Although the claims that the personal mainframe is detracting from the revenues of the other two are true, IBM needed to be flexible enough to attack itself with the new concept. Change is difficult, but it is the only way to avoid an uncertain future. There is a distinction between predicting the future and talking about a chance, says the author. Popping Gournay President Orville Redenbacher gambled on the fact that customers would pay twice as much for superior popcorn. Today, it demonstrates that testing your luck wasn't such a horrible idea. No one, let alone a marketing strategy, can anticipate the future with any degree of precision. The law of a success. Donald Trump and Robert Maxwell are two instances of people who were blinded by early success and did not learn from their mistakes. It's difficult to discern the purpose if you can't see the path. Trump's plan is for him to label everything. He committed the basic blunder of product expansion. Deniability tends to go hand in hand with arrogant conceit. He denies it, claiming that he isn't egotistical or magnificent. Meanwhile, it's difficult not to notice a 1-foot-tall bronze T-meter on his desk. This reality is more powerful than words. Success is frequently the next perplexing issue after hasty product expansion. When a brand is successful, the corporation will consider the name to be the primary cause for the brand's success. As a result, they immediately begin looking for another product to carry on the name. In fact, the opposite is true. The brand isn't notable because of its name, although a bad name can make the brand unpopular. Because you have the correct marketing actions, the brand is well known. In other words, your decision is consistent with marketing principles. You must first get access to the customer's thinking. You must restrict the scope of the activity, and you possess powerful qualities. You become so arrogant as a result of your success that you name all of your items after renowned people. The end result, Donald Trump's early triumph and long-term failure. The simpler it is to fall into the product expansion trap, the more you associate with the brand or company name. When things aren't going well, you could say to yourself, that's not the correct name. You say to yourself, we have a fantastic name. Pride is a forerunner of doom, and arrogance is a portent of impending doom. Proverbs, Old Testament 16:18. Tom Monahan, the CEO of Domino's Pizza, is one of the few business executives who believes pride is deceptive. You start to believe that you can accomplish everything, I used to say. Once upon a time, I attempted to prepare frozen pizza and failed miserably. If I kept attempting to market this type of pizza to restaurants and bars, Domino's wouldn't have nearly as many locations today. It is advantageous to feel proud. It may be a powerful incentive when it comes to growing a business. The problem is that it's being injected into a marketing campaign. Marketers that are good at what they do have the capacity to think like their consumers. They put themselves in their clients' shoes. They don't try to force their own worldview on others. After all, the universe is the sum total of all perspectives. In marketing, only customer perception matters. Companies like General Motors, Sears, Roebuck, and IBM got cocky as their prosperity skyrocketed. They believe that they can do whatever they want in the market. Failure follows success. Consider the business that invented the mini-computer. Digital Equipment Corporation, DEC, grew from nothing to a giant with $14 billion in revenues. Kenneth Olson is the company's founder. Ken's success has led him to believe entirely in his own version of the computer world. He despises personal computers, PCs, open systems, and lastly, computers with a short instruction set, SI, RISC-X. In other words, Ken overlooked the three most significant computer revolutions. Don't resist trends. They're like waves. Ken Olson is no longer in the game. Leaders lose contact with the front lines of warfare as their companies get larger. In the past, this has been a limiting issue in the company's growth. All other criteria favor the company's size. The first law of war is force, and marketing is no exception. Huge armies, like large corporations, offer several benefits. However, if a huge corporation does not maintain its marketing emphasis, it will lose its competitive edge. In the mind of the customer, there is a war. The quarrel between Robert Smith and Ross Perot at General Motors is one example of this. On weekends, when Ross Perot was on the GM board of directors, he went to dealers and bought automobiles. He chastised Roger Smith for failing to do so. We have to unleash the atomic bomb on GM's system, Perot adds, advocating for atomic bombs on heated garages, private chauffeur drives from limousines, and rooms reserved exclusively for senior executives. Hire a driver to drive a limousine for a corporation that wants to buy a car. How can you earn from objective knowledge on what is going on if you are a busy leader? How to avoid middle management's distortions, which tell you only what you want to hear. How do you get enough good and negative news? One option is to employ behavior, which is highly beneficial in distribution and retail. The goal is to learn the truth about what's going on. Corporate executives, like kings, rarely receive honest comments from ministers. At the imperial court, there was much too much intrigue. Another part of the issue is the issue of time. Senior executives frequently devote too much of their time to charities, such as the United Way, industry activities, outside meetings, and self-introductions. According to one study, the average senior executive spends 18 hours each week on outside activities. The internal meeting is the next waste. Allocate 17 hours per week for internal meetings and 6 hours per week for meeting preparation for senior executives. When a typical senior management employee works 61 hours a week, they have 20 hours left over to supervise the company's operations and go down to the front lines. It's unsurprising that senior executives shift marketing responsibilities to subordinates. That was a blunder. Marketing is much too crucial a profession to ignore. You should delegate the right to function as chairman of fundraising efforts if you wish to delegate something. Remember, it is the Vice President of the United States that attends national mourning, not the President of the United States. The next step is to cancel meetings. Go outside instead of sitting at the table and see for yourself. It is better to see once than to hear 100 times, Gorbachev advised Reagan. Small businesses are frequently closer to the front lines in spirit than major corporations. That might be why they have grown so much in the last decade. They don't break the success law. 19. The law of failure. Accept that failure is a possibility. Many businesses choose to address problems rather than abandon them. Let's rearrange to get out of this mess. That is how they live their lives. It is not helpful for your career to admit a mistake and then do nothing to repair it. The wisest course of action is to concede defeat and take steps to mitigate the damage as soon as possible. American Motors should have abandoned the Jeep long ago, just as IBM had to abandon the copier and Xerox had to abandon computer manufacturing years before they recognized their error. The Japanese appear to have noticed their error and made the appropriate adjustments early. Their consensus, consistent governing model tends to reduce egotism. There is no risk of losing one's reputation or harming one's karma if the bulk of people attend a minor part of a crucial decision. In other words, it will be simpler and more comfortable in life to declare, "We are all wrong," rather to the shock of admitting, "I'm wrong." This unpretentious attitude is one of the characteristics that distinguishes Japanese marketers. That isn't to say they don't make errors, they do, but they acknowledge them, rectify them, and go on. Sam Walton's ready, fire, aim attitude to coping with failure was used by the corporation that gained enormous success with Walmart. This was the outcome of his continuous inquisitiveness. Walton understands that no one is perfect all of the time. People at Walmart, on the other hand, are not punished if their experiment fails. If you learn something and do something, you may receive credit for it, a Walmart senior executive wrote in a Business Week piece. However, it is inconvenient for someone who commits the same error repeatedly. Walmart differs from many major corporations in that it has so far avoided an insidious cancer known as personal agenda, which infiltrates corporate structures. Marketing choices are frequently made with the decision-maker's career in mind first, followed by the decision's impact. Rival or competitor. There is an inherent conflict between personal and business agendas. This leads to a fear of taking chances. It's difficult to keep on top of a new product area if you're not up to it. 1. It is difficult for a senior leader who has been in a position for a long time, earns a large income, and is ready to retire to take a risk. Even young executives frequently make safe judgments in order to avoid impeding your advancement up the corporate ladder. No one has ever been fired for failing to make a risky decision. Nothing gets done in an American corporation unless it helps someone in the upper management echelons. This substantially restricts the amount of prospective marketing efforts a firm may do, not because of a lack of basis, but because none of its senior executives have directly profited from its success. Making the problem public is one method to remove the personal factor. 3M employs the champion approach, which entails publicly identifying who will profit from the success of a new product or initiative. The successful launch of 3M's Post-it Notes product established the feasibility of the concept. Art Fly is a 3M scientist who promotes Post-it Notes, a product that has been on the market for 12 years. While 3M systems do, in principle, allow managers to evaluate a grounded notion, an ideal context may allow them to do so. On quality, not on who gains from the concept. It will need cooperation, teamwork, and leadership sacrifice for an organization to perform optimally. Not a single army in history comes to mind when people think of General Patton and his Third Army in the effort to march into France. They took as much territory and as many captives as they did in such a short period of time. General Eisenhower sacked Patton as a result of his award. 20. The law of inflation. The reality is frequently diametrically opposed to what is reported in the media. When IBM became successful, it spoke relatively little about it. The corporation now holds regular news conferences. When things are going well, a business does not require much promotion. You're in trouble when you need the attention. Reporters and even unskilled editors are more inclined to like what they read in books than to go online and look it up. When the hype begins, it lasts for a long time. There isn't a single alcohol-free drink that is as well known as Coke. Coca-Cola is thought to have spent over $1 billion on free advertising for New Coke, plus hundreds of millions more for the brand launch campaign, and New Coke should have been the world's most successful product. That, however, did not occur. Coca-Cola was obliged to return to the old recipe, commonly known as Coca-Cola Classic, less than 60 days after beginning the promotion. Coca-Cola Classic now sells 15 times as much as New Coke. USA Today promotes more than any other publication. The President of the United States, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, and the leader of the majority of the United States Senate are among the participants in USA Today's 1992 campaign. The initial hoopla created such a stir that it was nearly difficult to imagine that USA Today was losing money. No other computer received as much attention as the Next. The press demanded so many invitations that Steve Jobs had to pre-print fresh invitations. Despite the fact that the hall could carry thousands of people, there was not a single seat remaining. Steve Jobs was featured on television and on the front pages of a number of major publications. Over $130 million has been invested by IBM, billionaire Ross Perot, and Canori. Will the next computer come out on top? Obviously not. Where do you begin? Is it true that Next is the first of its kind? No. There are several examples of marketing disasters throughout journalism history. Tucker 48, the American Rugby Union, video text, a completely automated factory, a personal helicopter, a prefabricated house, a phone with a screen, a polyester vest. Rumors, despite their promotion, do not help new items succeed. Massive advertising has the potential to render present items outdated. Wool cloth is rendered worthless by polyester fabric. Journalism-related video text transforms into paper. Roads and highways will be rendered obsolete by personal helicopters. Tucker 48's Cyclops Eye lights have the potential to revolutionize the Detroit car sector. Only 51 pieces are available. Everything was wrapped into a gleaming computer sphere in the advertisement boasting the future office. As we have seen recently, having one's own typewriter, now known as a personal computer, laser printer, copy machine, fax machine, stamping machine, is an idea that will only exist in the future. The law of unpredictability is broken by this forecast. No one, not even a brilliant Wall Street Journal writer, can forecast the future. The only changes you can be certain of are the ones that occurred. The first Toyopet introduced into California was the polar opposite of the original Tucker product. Is there an article in the Los Angeles Times describing how the entry of Japanese automobiles shook the auto industry? Not a single thing. Only one tale remained unnoticed, that of little Japanese automobiles that failed because they were unsuitable for American roads. Did you hear about it? When MCI began lobbying for microwave, shortwave service between Chicago and St. Louis, the newspapers warned, watch out for the impending competition AT&T. The modest MCI business received no notice from the press. Did the press cover the astonishing phenomena that would later alarm IBM and DEC when Sun Microsystems debuted its first workstation computer? No, Sun was mostly disregarded by the media. Forget about the front pages of newspapers. If you want to locate future hints, look at the back pages of newspapers, where there are usually innocent tiny articles. Personal computers and fax machines did not take off as swiftly as the first rockets. In 1974, the personal computer was debuted. It took IBM 6 years to enter the PC market. Even the PC appeared a year and a half later with the release of Lotus 123. It is not the same as reinventing a market to capture the public's ideals. Video phones are cases that look like phones but have pictures on them. The video phone has been in the news since its debut at the 1964 New York World's Fair, and not only on the front page. The Wall Street Journal recently declared on the front page, finally the age of the video phone has come to an end, will bring about huge changes. As an example, this is AT&T's third big attempt, so to speak. The corporation failed to charge $100 per month for a picture phone in the 1970s. It failed once again in the 1980s when it tried to sell a picture phone meeting service for 2,300 VND per hour. AT&T was generating $1,500 per hour with the same video phone in the 1990s. It is clear that the video phone has not progressed significantly. Who wants to get dressed up only to contact someone? It's difficult to understand why video phones are so widely promoted. An alternative to traveling was the title of an article in the journal. Look at the planes of American Airlines, United Airlines, and Delta. Your days are recorded with numbers. The video phone is not mentioned in the commercial. Instead, it is discussed. The tourism business is going to undergo a transformation. Over the years, the most attention has been paid to discoveries that promise to transform a whole industry, the kind that is critical to the American economy. Do you recall the post-World War II advertising push for helicopters? If a helicopter is stationed on each garage roof, the roads, bridges, and all factory personnel will produce automobiles that will be trashed overnight. Is Donald Trump a millionaire with a helicopter, so you've got one as well? Donald Trump had one, but he used it to pay interest to the bank. Then there was yet another brazen pitch for prefabricated homes, manufactured homes. The house type is mass-produced at the factory. The most costly things that every family has ever purchased can be created utilizing an assembly line approach, according to the advertisement, changing the building sector. Even everyday cuisine creates enormous news in the press from time to time. The announcement of an invention that will transform the packaging business was made in an advertisement. The trademark will no longer exist. People will read product labels and buy products based on their genuine attributes, not on the magnitude of the advertising budget committed to the brand. It's all a ruse. It's not that the buzz isn't based on some reality. A Bell 5-seater plane may be purchased for $580,000, including taxes. Pen computers may appeal to a tiny sector of the market, particularly salesmen that travel a lot. This sort of video phone has the potential to transform the sex phone industry. Mobile houses and recreational vehicles will have a significant market, and they will all be mass-produced. But for the most part, the excitement is just that. Hype. The true revolution does not arrive at noon with marching bands, nor does it arrive at 6 p.m. on the evening news. The real revolution comes unexpectedly in the middle of the night and will astound you. 21. The law of the increment. Trends, not fads, are the foundation of successful initiatives. A craze is like the sea waves, whereas a trend is like the tides. A craze has a lot of hype, but a trend contains relatively little. A fad is a profitable short-term phenomena that does not last long enough for a firm to survive. To put it another way, a business has a proclivity to promote a transient fad as if it were a trend. As a result, the business is frequently stagnant. Massive workforces, high-cost industrial facilities, and extensive distribution networks are all part of the picture. In some ways, fashion is a craze that repeats itself. Miniskirts for women and crisscross vests for males are two examples. Halley, a comet that reappears every 75 years, is also a trend. When the whims wane away, the business is frequently in serious financial trouble. A good illustration of this is what happened to Atari. And take a look at what Coleco Industries has accomplished with Cabbage Patch Kids, stuffed girl dolls. This style of doll first appeared on the market in 1983, and it is currently gaining popularity. Coleco's strategy is to take as much money as possible from youngsters. Hundreds of Cabbage Patch Kids dolls were strewn over the stores. Ink, pencil, crayons, games, doll clothing. Coleco generated $776 million in revenue and an $83 million profit 2 years later. The Cabbage Patch Kids doll was then discarded. Coleco filed bankruptcy in 1988. Coleco is no longer alive, but children are. Since Hasbro acquired Coleco in 1989, Cabbage Patch Kids dolls have been created with greater attention. Today, the business is doing rather well. This is a contradiction. If you have a fast-growing firm that has all of the hallmarks of a craze, the greatest thing you can do is avoid fads. By putting a stop to fads, you might make them stretch out and almost become a trend. The business of children's furniture is a good example of this difficulty. Some proprietors of well-known toy companies like giving their products names. As a result, it quickly becomes a craze, passing in the blink of an eye. When everyone bought the Ninja Turtle toy, it was a big deal. Nobody wants to purchase it anymore. The Ninja Turtles are an excellent example of a trend that swiftly fades away due to its owner's avarice. Instead of restraining the craze, its owner blew it. Barbie dolls, on the other hand, are popular. When the Barbie doll was first introduced many years ago, it was never so popular that it had to be transferred to a new location. Barbie dolls became a long-term fad in the children's toy industry as a result. Those that have complete control over their appearances are the most successful artists. They don't come up too often. Their names doesn't appear everywhere. And they didn't lose the audience's excitement. Colonel Parker, Elvis Presley's manager, made many attempts to curtail Elvis's appearances and recordings. As a result, every time Elvis appears, he draws a large crowd. Elvis himself had a role in this technique by limiting his public appearances. Marilyn Monroe and James Dean, for example. Don't be fooled by fads. When it happens, the greatest approach to hold it back is to never fully satisfy the need in order to preserve long-term demand for the product. However, much of what is lucrative in marketing is based on a long-term trend. 22. No proper funding, one idea that can't be done. If you have a good concept and have read the 21 laws listed above, think about it. You're mistaken if you believe all you need is some marketing assistance. Even if you have the finest concept in the world, if you don't have the money to make it a reality, it will remain just that. Marketing is a battle for customers' thoughts, and it costs money to win. Many businesses owners regard advertising as a way to get into their consumers' heads, yet advertising is quite expensive. Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak had a wonderful concept for an Apple computer, but they had to approach Mike Markula for $91,000 before it became a reality. Without money, a good concept is worthless? Not precisely, however, you must first use your concept to generate revenue before relying on marketing. The affluent grow wealthier in marketing because they can afford the capacity to imbue the customer's head with the picture of the product. Their main issue is narrowing down the list of excellent, terrible, and cost-cutting proposals. Many inequities abound in the marketplace. When confronted with a large rival, this is especially true for small marketers. Large corporations invest a significant amount of money on their brands. Procter & Gamble spends around $2 billion on advertising and marketing each year, whereas General Motors spends approximately $1.5 billion dollars per year. It's difficult to be inexpensive in marketing if you want to be successful. So, where can tiny businesses get funding? Perhaps we will. Thank you for listening. Please feel free to share any recommendations you have, and don't forget to like and subscribe.